Good morning and welcome to the New York City Council hearing of the Committee on Sanitation and Solid Waste Management. At this time, can everybody please silence your cell phones? If you wish to testify, please go to the back of the room to fill out a testimony slip. At this time and going forward, no one is to approach the dais. I repeat, no one is to approach the dais. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Sanitation Committee members, Acting DSNY Commissioner Javier Lohan, Assistant Commissioner Frank Marshall, and Assistant Commissioner Neil Eisenberg. I'd like to thank the members of the public who are here to testify. We also have BIC Commissioner Elizabeth Crotty here, and she'll be part of a separate panel. To minimize disruption, please place electronic devices on vibrate or silent mode. I would also like to acknowledge Councilmember Nurse for being present here with us today. In 2019, the Council enacted Local Law 199, requiring the establishment of a new system for the collection of a portion of commercial waste produced in New York City. The purpose of today's hearing is to learn more about the city's implementation of this law and the new commercial waste zones system. According to the Council's findings in the legislative purpose of Local Law 199, the current commercial waste collection system is plagued by dangerous driving and insufficient attention to public safety, leading to dozens of deaths on New York City streets, harmful environmental and public health impacts, such as excessive truck emissions and noise pollution, dangerous conditions for commercial waste collection workers, and poor customer service, such as opaque pricing, putting small businesses at a disadvantage. According to the same findings, the new system will result in carters which adequately train their workers on safe practices, a dramatic reduction in truck traffic and resultant roadway wear and tear, reduced incentives for unsafe driving, enhanced protections for commercial waste collection workers, advancement of the city's efforts to reduce waste and increase recycling, and overall promotion of the public health, safety, and welfare of all New Yorkers. Pursuant to Local Law 199, DSNY has divided the city into 20 commercial waste zones. And although it took nearly 5 years, in January 2024, DSNY announced the names of private carters that will collect waste from businesses in one or more of these zones. The city has stated that it plans to use a staggered schedule to implement each of the zones to the new system. Earlier this year, the city implemented the first commercial waste zone, known as Queens Central, which is located across neighborhoods of Corona, East Elmhurst, Forest Hills, Glendale, Jackson Heights, Regal Park, and Ridgewood. Businesses that were required to select one of 3 private waste carters. Businesses there were required to select one of 3 private waste carters for their waste collection. Businesses that did not make a selection were assigned a carter by DSNY. We are pleased to learn this morning that 2 additional zones will be implemented later this year, Bronx West and Bronx East. We look forward to hearing about the commercial waste zones rollout in Queens Central and the agency's news for the next 2 zones and the following zones as well. Since the committee's last commercial waste zones hearing, we've also seen an uptick in market activity by trade waste companies, resulting in some shifts among carters assigned to each zone. We're also aware of ongoing and required safety trainings and retrofitting of trucks by carters who will take part in the implementation of the city's remaining 19 zones, and an increase in the number of safety violations issued to these carters by BIC. Additionally, we've heard from advocates about the need for swifter implementation of Local Law 199 of 2019 to protect community health. We look forward to hearing from DSNY, BIC, and advocates about this activity today. We are also hearing 2 bills today. These include intro number 1228 that I've introduced in relation to expanding the categories of businesses that may be subject to requirements regarding the disposal of commercial organic waste. As we require residents to separate their organic waste, it's only right that our businesses do the same. Intro 1228 ensures that commercial and residential diversion efforts move forward together. We will also be hearing intro number 784 by Council Member Sandy Nurse in relation to establishing a tracking system concerning the disposal of yellow and brown grease. Councilmember Nurse, I'll turn it over to you to speak about your bill.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Intro 784 would require the Business Integrity Commission to establish a tracking system for yellow and brown grease. When grease is improperly disposed of, it ends up in our sewers and congeal to cause massive clogging in the form of fatbergs. In the last 5 years, there have been over 900 311 complaints relating to grease in sewers and catch basins. Queens County received the most 311 complaints for grease in sewers and catch basements with 323, followed by Brooklyn with 265, Manhattan 174, and Bronx 109, Staten Island with 35. Grease doesn't have to end up in our sewers. In 2022, Waste Management, the Department of Environmental Protection, and Veriflux conducted a 4-month citywide pilot that tracked the waste-to-energy supply chain of grease. The pilot tracked 100 truckloads, which picked up waste from nearly 600 businesses, and calculated that they diverted over 3.5 million pounds of solid and liquid food waste in the form of grease, trap waste, and food scraps from the landfill to biogas. According to the report, the pilot program demonstrates the feasibility and value of traceable data to support New York City to divert solid and liquid food waste from landfills and convert it into renewable energy. While not a perfect solution, this pilot does illustrate how our waste streams can become more efficient. I believe this is the second time we're hearing this bill in about 4 years, and I look forward to hearing the administration's feedback on it. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember. I look forward to the dialogue regarding these bills today. I would like to thank everyone on my team and the Sanitation Committee staff for their work on this legislation and oversight hearing preparations. I would also like to acknowledge Councilmember Sandra Ung, who has joined us here as well today. Today, we will begin the hearing with testimony from DSNY, followed by questions to their representatives. Then we will hear from BIC and follow up with any questions to Commissioner Crotty. After that, we will move to testimony by members of the public. I will now turn it over to our committee counsel to administer the oath.
Good morning, Commissioner Javier Lohan, Frank Marshall, Neil Eisenberg, Rebecca Greigerman. Can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, and to respond honestly to council member questions? Thank you. You may begin testimony when you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Abreu and members of the Committee on Sanitation and Solid Waste Management. I am Javier Lohan, Acting Commissioner of the New York City Department of Sanitation, and I am joined today by Neil Eisenberg, Deputy Commissioner for Strategic Initiatives, by Frank Marshall, Assistant Commissioner, Bureau of Commercial Waste, and by Rebecca Kriegman, my Chief of Staff and Assistant Commissioner for Policy and Planning. I am in my 26th year with New York's Strongest, and over that time period, I've seen many changes to our operation. Safety and efficiency have increased steadily throughout the years, but DSNY only services New York City's residential properties without hundreds of thousands of businesses employing a serpentine network of private companies to haul and process their waste. At the time that DSNY was innovating and improving our collection operations, some of these companies were doing the same, but others were engaged in a race to the bottom, prioritizing price and speed over safety and environmental justice. Local Law 199 of 2019 was crafted through years of negotiation to address that, to bring the commercial carting industry in New York City in line with the best practices seen in the public sector. When fully implemented, we are looking at about 12 million fewer miles traveled by commercial carting vehicles. And making good on a promise from when this program was created, businesses will pay less for collection of recyclables and compostable material than they do for trash, at a citywide average of 32% less for recycling and 18% for compostable material. That means businesses will have a meaningful financial incentive to separate their waste property. In short, commercial carting will be safer for workers, of a higher quality for businesses, and better for our environment. As part of this program, all commercial carters are or will be required to make substantial upgrades to safety equipment of their vehicles, including the installation of backup cameras, auxiliary exterior lighting, and GPS monitoring systems like the ones used by municipal waste vehicles. Requiring carters to make this investment will make a real difference in safety. We believe it already has. All workers in this sector are also receiving a new mandated safety training of 40 hours in the first year, plus an 8-hour refresher every year thereafter. There was no standardized safety training requirement or New York City specific requirement for safety equipment prior to Local Law 199. And DSNY is using the new authority it has been granted under this law to enforce these safety requirements. Enforcement is not reactive under ZWZ. It is built into the program's design. We have established clear thresholds, reporting requirements, and penalties to hold awardees accountable. DSNY officers hold daily field inspections. In January, after years of planning and months of outreach, the first of New York City's 20 non-exclusive commercial waste zones came online in Corona, Elmhurst, and Jackson Heights. Since inspections began in that zone on September 3rd, 2024, DSNY has issued 197 notices of violations for vehicle and driver safety issues like spillage, unregistered vehicles, and street obstructions, as well as 2 company-level notices of violations to carters who had too many violations by their drivers. Each of those carry fines of $2,500 with penalties that increase if the issues continue. A new standard of oversight has arrived in the commercial carting industry, with the Bureau of Commercial Waste leading the way through advanced technology and data-driven enforcement strategies. Any updates to safety regulations will be informed by the work of the Safety Task Force created under the law. Local Law 199 outlines 11 members of this task force, including 4 individuals appointed by the City Council as a whole and 1 appointed by the Council Speaker. I would like to remind the Council that despite often expressing concern about the success of this program, this body at this time has not filled 2 of these 5 seats. Mayor Adams's appointees represent a broad range of policy knowledge and professional experience, and the administration would welcome the opportunity to collaborate with council appointees as dictated by law. On safety, enforcement, and customer signups, Queens Central has seen a successful launch. Incredibly, not a single one of the thousands upon thousands of businesses in the zone has made a complaint to DSNY of any issues with service or billing, but the Bureau of Commercial Waste learned a tremendous amount during its first-of-its-kind implementation that will be useful for future zones. In the past, advocates had called for DSNY to launch the entire city at once. Having led the rollout of the first zone, I can tell you I am incredibly thankful that we did not do that. Traditionally, data about commercial waste generation in New York City has been extremely limited, and there was so much to learn during this process about the needs of businesses, the capacity of carters, and the relationship between the two. This first zone implementation was an extremely intensive process. DSNY in-house and contracted outreach staff visited some businesses 8 to 10 times to discuss the specifics of the program, and significant resources went into making sure that these conversations could take place in a diversity of language with full cultural competence. Carters also engage in outreach as they pitch their services, with all carter advertising approved by DSNY. Beyond outreach, both DSNY and the carters also needed to make substantial operational updates, with the carters producing reams of new data and our team reviewing it in great detail to inform both future implementation and enforcement. And that's to say nothing of the businesses themselves, many of which were thinking about their waste generation in a real way for the first time. While the online portal at nyc.gov/commercial waste is extremely intuitive and easy to use, the laundromat or the coffee shop still needs to take time from the real work of running their business to make these decisions. When a business failed to make this decision, DSNY made assignments as necessary that prevented any lapse in service, a remarkable example of what government can do. However, I must emphasize that if this implementation had been rushed, if we had been spread thinner, if the carters had not been given the time to do this right, it absolutely would have failed, and the entire program might have fallen apart. Following this first zone, we have recently completed a data analysis that will allow for the moment that you will have all been waiting for, the start of the next zones later this year, as well as the announcement of the full rollout order to reach citywide implementation. DSNY will next launch 2 zones, Bronx East and Bronx West, together covering that borough in its entirety. The outreach and customer sign-up period for these zones will begin October 1st, 2025, with full implementation complete by November 30th, 2025. As of this moment, nyc.gov/commercial waste has also been updated to show the order in which the remaining 17 zones will come online in cohorts, fully complete by December 31st, 2027. This is a massive change to an industry that has far too long been treated as a race to the bottom. Minimum standards like the kind of achieved under the program help businesses, they help the environment, and they help workers. We are proud to be getting it done. Now I will turn to the bills on today's agenda. Intro 1228, sponsored by Chair Abreu, takes on the issue of commercial organic separation. The Adams administration and this council have worked closely on residential composting over the last several years, but requirements for businesses have lagged behind, being covered by the arcane and outdated Local Law 146 of 2013. We agree with the council member that requirements for businesses to source separated compostable material should match the city's commitment to diversion of compostable waste on the residential side, particularly given that the commercial waste zone system will improve commercial diversion by providing financial incentives to businesses. We support this bill. Intro 784, sponsored by Councilmember Nurse, primarily relates to the work of the Business Integrity Commission, and we will defer to BIC's testimony after this. Thank you, and we look forward to taking your questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would also like to acknowledge Councilmember Zhuang for joining us in today's hearing. Mr. Commissioner, last week we learned that the Adams administration would be pausing fines for buildings with fewer than 30 units, saying that resources would be allocated to education and outreach, citing resident confusion. But just a few days prior, DSNY issued a press release announcing a third site in Astoria to distribute free compost to residents, which noted the overwhelming demand and record amount of compostable material collected. DSNY also reported that over 4,000 tickets had already been issued in the first 2 weeks. It seemed as though y'all had been ready and prepared to issue fines. We had spent months preparing for the effective date of curbside composting going into effect. We spent a lot of resources and time telling our constituents that this was happening, and 2 weeks later, all of a sudden, I felt like everything was pulled from under. Can you please speak to the decision that was made? Was it made by the department? Was it made outside of the department? It just doesn't make sense, especially given the council's push for composting education and outreach, and the administration having testified last year that it had all the resources it needed for a citywide rollout.
Sure. So, as you know, that the outreach is the most important part of any program, and we supported the decision to pause the fines and continue and focus on education and outreach for buildings under 30 units. One of the things I feel good about is that I think that the warning period prior to the actual enforcement period, we had focused on warnings right prior to the April 1st date. We issued over 30,000 warnings, and we felt that that had a really good impact. So I think that that approach, taking that now with the pause, will still have a meaningful impact. And I think we're going to take a little bit of a different approach where we're going to focus more on the same warnings. The residents will still get warnings. And the warnings are not just verbal warnings, they're written warnings, which we track. The interaction piece is going to be one of the things we focus more on as well. So we have 232 sections across the city, right? They're broken up, 59 districts, 232 sections. Each of those sections usually get a sanitation supervisor during the day. Our plan is to have them, the existing resources, focus on the warnings and the interactions with all the customers, all the residents across 5 boroughs that, in the 1 to 29 unit buildings. On the 30 unit plus buildings, we still have the ability to issue summonses after 4 warnings. So the good thing about, one of the things we did with this program, as you know, Chair, is we created a new service request through 311, where any resident can call and complain about their building either not participating in the program. So that right now, as of this date, we've received over 1,000 of those complaints, and those are the areas that we will focus on. And I think that we're still going to be successful with the program. The service is not going to stop, and we're just going to continue to do outreach.
Yeah, I'd like to highlight that at a pretty animated hearing last year with OMB Director Jiha, Jock, my apologies, Director Jock. It was pretty impassioned hearing where, he spoke about community composting being an inefficient program. Is that the administration's position?
No, I think that there's different ways to look at it. Prior to us rolling out universal curbside composting. I think there was definitely a place and a role for community composting. I think now that we've transitioned and gone through all the boroughs rolling out, the education and outreach that we did previously, there's the warnings. I think that their role has shifted, and I think there is a place for them. So I think it's a different time. It was, obviously back then was different than now. So there is definitely a place for community compost.
Yeah, and look, my goal here is not to, tear you guys down on this issue.
Right.
It's just that I feel like, we've been raising alarm bells for over a year on the role that community composting plays and educating New Yorkers about what composting is. My office and other council member offices, for instance, have partnered with the Lower East Side Ecology and Big Reuse. They're going into buildings and talking to tenants directly about what composting is and how they can participate. And we're also, in addition to that, we're using the kitchen countertop bins that the department has been providing as well as a way to sort of combine it with education and infrastructure so people know that what it's like. And a year ago, the mayor cut composting education in the budget. The council had to step in and fund $6.25 million for this program. So if anything, I think it speaks to the need for this administration to continue to invest in the education and for DSNY and the community composting groups to work together. Now that the decision has been made to pause fining, what do the next 6 months look like in terms of how much resources you think you're going to need to making sure folks are educated? When do you see fines coming back online for units under 30? Right. What's the plan?
So, as I mentioned, the existing supervision we have in place right now is going to be what I leverage for this. And these supervisors, just so you know, you might be familiar with them, Chair, are assigned to these sectors regularly. They have relationships with a lot of the different residents and businesses in the area, and that's where their focus is going to be. Obviously, they're still going to be able to, issue violations for other sanitation-related violations, but I think that their presence, they have to drive down these blocks regularly to make sure that there's, ASP regulations are being met, that the refuse and other recyclables are being collected. So they're driving down here and observing, making observations. So these are the people that we're leveraging to make sure that this education and outreach piece is going to be completed. And again, it's through the written warnings. We have a sticky note that has information if we can't make attempts to contact the homeowner or, the building owner. But I think that's where I'm going to focus on, is leveraging them to make interactions and explain to them, what the program is about. Because it's a simple, I think one of the things that I have seen or heard about is that some people think that they can only use a certain kind of bin, right? I mean, ideally, the brown bin is the ideal bin to use because it has a locking lid, and we gave out almost 200,000 of these bins when we rolled out each borough. But you can use any bin under 55 gallons as long as it's sealed, tightly sealed, and if you have just leave-in yard waste, you can put that out in a plastic bag or a paper bag. So there's a lot of, there is, some people that have expressed confusion, and I think those are the things that I want to address with this outreach piece.
Thank you. I also like to recognize Councilmember Carr for joining us. I'm going to transition to commercial waste zones. I know that we have an executive budget hearing that's coming up soon with DSNY and Finance. Our committee and with Finance, and there will be a lot of questions there about what's going to be needed from a funding standpoint for composting education, to making sure that New Yorkers are fully informed about what this is, because it is a big program and we want it to succeed. All right. Despite the law's passage in 2019, the implementation of Local Law 199 remains underway. Some advocates have called for CWZs to be swiftly and timely implemented, with some calling for full implementation in 2025. DSNY has stated plans to use a staggered schedule for each of the commercial waste zones to transition to the new system. I understand that today y'all announced, I understand that today the y'all comes from me going to school in New Orleans, for law school. My apologies. I know that today DSNY announced full implementation by December of 2027. Can you speak to I understand that Bronx East and Bronx West will go live this fall and fully be implemented in December. But I noticed that there hadn't been dates set out for the remaining 17 zones. Can you give us some clarity on those zones?
Sure. So we're very excited, as you mentioned, Chair, and I mentioned in my testimony, that Bronx East and West are coming online. So we released the schedule, and why there weren't any dates is that while we learned a lot from Queens Central, that was, one zone, within the borough. We feel like there is some more to learn because every borough is unique. And I think once we get the Bronx under our belt, we will be able to have a tighter timeline. The one thing I will commit to is that before we roll out any of those zones, we will give the Carters ample time. We'll give them at least 6 months before rolling out the next zone to make sure that they're aware that we're going to start on their zone next. But I think the Bronx is very unique and it's obviously very different from Queens. So I think once we roll out these next 2 zones, I think we're gonna have seen a lot more and learned pretty much almost everything we need to. Obviously, there's still a lot more to learn, but I think at that point, we will be a lot more confident and have a better sense of the dates then.
And regardless of the zones that follow, do you have any sense of timing on when the when the next zones will be implemented, regardless of the area, or?
Well, the schedule kind of lays it out, and like I said, I think once we get closer to finally implementing the Bronx, we'll obviously announce the next zone 6 months prior, to actually rolling out. And I think by then we'll probably have a regular cadence on announcing the zones, and we'll have that. But again, we're committed to completing it by the end of 2027. So there's only so much time that we have in between then, right? So, if I delay one, I have to push another. So that's
Is it fair to do like how many divide months by number of zones, and that would be the projected timeline?
I mean, you could do that. I just would advise not to, because I don't want any Carter prematurely, either making investments or ramping up or scaling down on, staffing. So that's why I didn't want to put dates in there. But I think once we get through the Bronx, we'll have a better sense of that.
I'll acknowledge Councilmember Banks has joined us. Commissioner, prior to the announcement of the implementation of the Bronx West and Bronx East zones, did DSNY consult with any of the carding companies that will be servicing these zones? And if so, what has been their response?
So, as you know, Chair, there were 18 awardees, 30 Carters for all of the zones. And they all submit part of the RFP process was they submitted the plans. So, we communicate with them regularly. And I think now that we've announced the schedule, the next 2 zones, we're going to have a more focused effort on making sure we communicate with them. And also, in working with BIC as well, some of the non-awardees, because obviously now they have to be made aware that they're not going to be operating in those zones as we move forward. So,
do the carding companies believe, I guess you're going to have these conversations with them now, but to the extent you have knowledge, do the carding companies believe they will have enough time and capacity to begin taking on clients in October and servicing them in November?
Yeah, I think that's why we feel the 6 month, at least the 6 month notification period is sufficient enough, just based on the conversations that we've had, and then their plans submitted.
What factored into the decision to implement these 2 specific zones next, Bronx West and East?
So one of the biggest factors was that they have one of the highest existing customer base out of the remaining zones, meaning that they already have relationships with some of the awardees that are going to take Bronx East and West, and that for us was ideal because they have regular relationships, they're familiar with the companies, so the transition shouldn't. Although there's always going to be challenges like anything else, we feel like that's going to minimize the disruptions. So that's why Bronx was one of the main factors why we rolled out Bronx West and East. And the messaging is a little bit easier, again, because they have relationships with them. And then all but one of the Carters already operate and participate in Bronx East and Bronx West. So there's really one that's going to be, that has.
So it was a decision mostly driven by the existing relationships that exist with the Carters and businesses.
Correct.
What's the physical landscape differences between Queens Central and Bronx East and Bronx West? Trying to figure out if that played any role.
You mean in terms of customer base or just
The
what?
ability of Carters to navigate those different type of neighborhoods. Are they similar? Are they different?
Well, I mean, just my experience, as far as DSNY operations, they're different. Obviously, there's parts of the Bronx that are, high density, like southern western Bronx, and then you have eastern Bronx that it's probably mid to lower density. I would say Queens Central is probably more of like a mid-density area, so there are going to be differences there in the higher density areas, and that's why I say I think we'll learn some from that.
So between Queens Central and Bronx East and Bronx West, it'll sort of give you a comprehensive
Correct.
Nature of what that would look like for the remaining zones.
Correct.
Does DSNY expect it will implement the other 4 commercial waste zones in Queens before the end of 25, or it's assuming no because you only decided to just do Bronx by the end of the year?
Correct, yeah. I mean, I believe the next Queens zone is in phase 4. Phase 4. But yeah, not by the end of this year, because as we announced, 2025 is Bronx
Okay.
East and West.
What has DSNY, I know you mentioned you've learned a lot about the implementation, and I'd like to learn more about that. What has the department learned from Queens Central about the time needed for implementation of a new zone? And how many new zones does DSNY anticipate can be implemented at one time?
So one of the main things we learned was the initial outreach and communications period. We started in September of 2024, and that ran all the way through December of 2024. So we anticipated having a 4-month period where we were going to go out and canvass all the businesses and make sure they were aware of the program, the law, their rights, and how it was designed. And we noticed that the first 2 months, we really didn't gain much from it because I guess it was too far out. The nature of a human being is that they wait close to the deadline to make a decision, and that's what we learned, that once we got closer to December is really when we started noticing people taking us seriously and saying, okay, wow, this is actually happening. So that's one of the biggest things we learned, and then that's when, going forward with our plan, we cut out the 4-month, period into 2 months. The other thing we learned that was from Queens Central was the contracts. So every Carter had to have a contract with every business. So that's very time consuming, obviously, for us and the Carters and even the businesses, because a lot of the businesses, the decision makers aren't always available, so they have to find time in their busy schedule to kind of have that. So that's one of the things. There's a portal that they upload that for our review. So that's very time consuming. And I'll just pass it to Assistant Commissioner Frank Marshall for anything else on the Queens Central lessons learned.
Yeah, I think one major factor was that we wanted to make sure that on January 3rd, all businesses were under a CWZ contract, wanted no disturbance. Happy to report that occurred. So one of the lessons that we learned from that was, as the Commissioner mentioned, is that even though we had extensive outreach, I just want to kind of build upon that, was that our outreach actually started in July of 2024, so not even in September, 3 months prior. We found that many of the customers in Queens Central did not sign up when we opened up. It was a trickle effect, and until the last 6 to 8 weeks, that's when we saw the most movement in regards to customer signups. And I just wanted to give a little bit more color in regards to why we decided to get into the schedule to a 2-month sign-up period rather than the initial 4 with the plus 3 months of outreach. So we have proven and have gathered data in regards to correlating the outreach efforts to the actual signups of the customer. And the results is that it was a long period, it didn't move the needle, but once we got down to the last 2 months, that's when we saw movement, and I think has informed us that moving forward, let's try this 2-month rollout rather than the 4.
Thank you, Commissioner. Based on what you've learned for the next phase, how many months of outreach are you going to do, followed by the 2-month period? So you did 4 before, now you're doing 2, and you did 3 months of outreach. So are you going to continue doing 3 months of outreach? What's that going to look like for the next phase?
So, no, I think it's just going to remain with the 2 months of the outreach.
Okay.
And I think that's what we're going to stick to for the rest of the zones.
What communications has DSNY had with private carding companies, both awardees and non-awardees, regarding the timeline for implementation of additional zones?
So now that we've announced all the schedule and the next zones, we plan on making contact with all of the awardees, and as I mentioned previously, we plan on working with BIC, coordinating with them on communicating to the non-awardees as well, because as I mentioned, they need to be informed of if they're not an awardee, they're not going to be able to operate in the zone as of the start of the implementation date.
What has been DSNY's response to non-awardee carding companies that have requested information from DSNY about commercial wage zones implementation? We've been getting a lot of messages from non-awardees, saying that DSNY hasn't been responsive. Obviously, as new zones come online, that's going to impact their businesses, or even their ability to consolidate with others. What is your response to that?
So I think part of the challenge with that was we didn't announce the full schedule. So I think that was one of the things that we didn't want to prematurely give to any of the awardees or non-awardees, because the last thing we wanted to do was give a non-awardee information and then they make assumptions on timeline, and then they're laying off or getting rid of scaling down operations. So we didn't want that. But now that we have committed to rolling out the Bronx, the full schedule being completed by the end of 2027, we will make every effort and have a commitment to reach out to all of them.
Is DSNY aware of any carding companies that have had to use non-direct demands DSNY, such as FOIA requests about commercial wage zones information?
No, we're not aware of that at this time, Chair.
Okay. I'm going to now transition to safety and enforcement against awardees. Between 2024 and April 2025, BIC issued approximately 3,086 notices of violations to companies operating in the trade waste industry. More than 2,000 of the 3,086 violations issued over this period were settled, including pending and early settlements. Half of fines issued were $2,500 or less. Approximately 10% of those 3,086 violations included citations to awardees. How many violations have been issued to Queens Central awardees this year?
So one of the highlights of our implementation and presence in Queens Central has been our enforcement mechanism. So since, as of today and since the beginning of September, we've issued 197 violations to Queens Central awardees for both vehicle and traffic law violations and environmental control board violations. And just to give you a little bit of sense of what those are made up of, 2 of those violations were issued to ZWZ awardees for their vehicles engaging in a pattern of unsafe practices, and then a big part of those were for truck spillage. One of the things I do want to highlight, so we're in April and we started in September, right? So pre-implementation was about 4 months, and now we're post-implementation, so now we're so about the same time. So in 2024, when our presence started out there, we found that the carders out there were in compliance, meaning we went out and made observations. They were in compliance for 17 days. And then now, in 2025, they've been in compliance for 38 days, which shows a nice drastic change in that. And I think that they see us out there, they know we're out there, and I think that's a really good story as commercial waste zone. One of the obviously priorities were safety. So we are focusing on that, and we are issuing violations to the carters.
Can you please repeat the categories of violation? You said vehicle, miles traveled,
Sure, so-
and environmental?
Yeah, so it's the VTL law, so that's any, vehicle and traffic law violation. So I'll give you a sense of a vehicle traffic law violation that's like disobeying a steady red light. An ECB violation is like a noxious liquid. Street obstruction is another ECB violation, and then disobeying a traffic signal is a vehicle traffic law violation. So those are the types of violations that we've been observing and issuing violations for.
How many of these violations were related to vehicle maintenance?
So one of the things that we did with our enforcement personnel, we have police officers, sanitation police officers, that we sent up to Albany for motor carrier safety training, meaning it's what, we do with all heavy-duty trucks. They had to go to an intensive training and they'd be qualified in being able to inspect these kinds of trucks. So there's level 1 inspections where they pretty much pull the truck over and inspect almost every aspect of a vehicle, even underneath the truck, so it's very time consuming. There's a level 2 violation, there's a level 2 inspections, which is the ones that we've typically been doing, where we'll go out there, we'll pull the truck over, and we'll check the entire equipment and safety parts of the truck. So like lights, any of the safety equipment that a truck's supposed to have, we'll inspect that. And as well as the operator, we will inspect the operator's driver's license. As you know, drivers of heavy-duty equipment are required to have commercial waste CDL, which are still governed under FMCSA regulations. So they're able to inspect to see if they have a valid license, things like that. So we've conducted 14 inspections of level 2, as I mentioned. One resulted in the truck being taken out of service because if they had issues, and then one resulted in a driver being taken out of service because there may have been issues with his or her license. So it's been effective.
Of the 108, you said 187, correct? Violations?
197.
Of the 100, my apologies, of the 197 violations, what would you say is the breakdown of categories of violations and how many for each category? Do you have a breakdown?
Okay, so I kind of have that here. So 45% of them were for truck spillage. So
Were for
truck spillage, meaning
Truck spillage?
they serviced the bags or material, and then they spilled waste all over the curb or sidewalk, and they didn't clean it up. So that's a violation. As I mentioned before, disobeying steady red lights, that's 10%.
10%?
10%, yep. There were 9% of those were for noxious liquids. So a truck is supposed to have a seal in the back of it, so it doesn't, any of the waste it picks up doesn't drip on the street. That's an example of it. So 9% of those were for those. 5% were for street obstructions, so they're not supposed to block any of the streets or sidewalks. 3% were for disobeying a traffic signal, so it might have been running a red light. And then 3% were for driving on the wrong side of the street or driving the left of the pavement marks. So that's the breakdown.
How would you say these violations compare to safety violations prior to Queens Central implementation? I know this is a very small sample
it's hard for
size.
me to gauge that. Let's see. But, Chair, are you talking about previous in Queens Central?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Don't have that information.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you can,
Okay.
try to disaggregate that information, send
Okay.
to us following the hearing, that would
Okay.
be greatly appreciated. Have all Queens Central wardies completed the required initial and refresher safety trainings?
Yeah, so all Queens Central Carters awardees have completed their required 40-hour safety training. The 8-hour training is a refresher every year after that.
Does DSNY monitor Queens Central wardies on other safety issues, and if so, please describe those issues?
Yeah, I mean, the main safety issues are running red lights, driving on the wrong side of the streets. Those are really the ones, we look for everything. So, the answer is yes, we look for every kind of safety violation. We don't overlook anything.
Have there been any reported incidences of lithium-ion battery fires in awardees' trucks during the implementation of the Queens Central Zone?
No, we have no reported incidents of that.
In some situations, private waste trucks may block traffic or a bike lane, creating a hazard when they have to stop for several minutes or more at a business to collect waste from there. What enforcement does DSNY or any other city agency conduct with regard to where commercial waste trucks may park during collections?
So right now, there are instances where, I don't believe in Queens Central there has been any areas where they have to block a bike lane. But there may, as we roll out citywide, we may encounter that. One of the things we do, as DSNY ourselves, is when we service that, we obviously ask them to make sure they have their hazard lights on and they're watching out for any pedestrians or bicyclists. But they can't just go out and drive in a bike lane or obstruct, any kind of traffic. And then DEP does some idling enforcement as well.
Thank you for that. Non-awardee carters are obviously not allowed to collect commercial waste in Queens Central. Has DSNY had to conduct enforcement against ongoing service by non-awardee carters in Queens Central? And if so, please describe how that enforcement has taken place.
Yeah, so that's definitely one of the things we look for. It's definitely a thing that I think we haven't seen much of. There was one incident that we experienced where it didn't seem like it was an intentional violation by the non-awardee. It was on the border of the Queens Central, the border of the zone. And I think that was addressed and rectified. And I'll just pass it to Assistant Commissioner Marshall for if that obviously is something that we find to be intentional, what would be the violation for that?
Yes, Chair, so there was one incident. It was with Dunkin' Donuts that was on the border of Queens Central. So if you cross the street, you could be in Queens Central or you may not be in Queens Central. So a non-awardee was servicing that establishment. It was flagged for the department. We reached out to the non-awardee. They acknowledged and stated that we made a mistake. We didn't realize it. We looked into their justification. It made sense on the map tool because it's just such a niche area. They then vacated from servicing the awardee, from servicing the customer. The customer selected a appropriate CWZ awardee. The customer was also reimbursed money for the services provided, and we moved forward. So it was a great lessons learned. It wasn't intentional. And as soon as it was identified, we rectified it and moved forward.
It's like when a council member is in my district and they shouldn't be, Just kidding. That was a joke. I understand that. What are other enforcement issues DSNY has experienced in Queens Central, and are there any additional enforcement issues that we haven't discussed that you all have to anticipate?
I think one of the, Queens Central was very successful because we didn't receive any customer complaints. One of the issues that we would be looking for as we roll out the other zones would be if any of the carters are having any kind of billing violations, if they're exceeding what the cap is. So those are the things that we would be looking for. Thankfully, we have not experienced that in Queens Central. And that's the other reason for going into the Bronx, is that they have a relationship with, all but one of the carters, and I think that should limit any kind of issues there as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm now going to take a deeper dive into Queens Central before I have my colleagues ask some questions. How many businesses did DSNY identify as being a customer of awardees in the Queens Central Commercial Waste Zone?
So we relied on the BIC registry, which was about 6,400 businesses in the zone. And then out of those 6,400, about 3,300 of those being existing customers of awardees in Queens Central.
You're saying about?
So about 6,400 of them, we identified of having business in Queens Central.
Okay, and 3,300 of them
were existing customers with the awardees.
got it. So there were about another 3,000 or so new relationships?
Correct.
Okay. How did this differ from pre-implementation projections?
There really wasn't much of a difference. It was pretty much what we expected.
Okay. What was the expectation then?
You mean the expectation of what we were going to encounter there?
In terms of customers, how many businesses were identified as being a customer of awardees? That number, was it this? What you were predicting to be that number? Was it about the same?
Yeah, it was about the same, correct.
How many of the Queens Central businesses are contracted with each of Basing, Haulage, Borough-wide, and Waste Connections?
So I'll give you a breakdown by percentage. So 8% of them. 8%. Basin has 8% of the customers. Borough-wide has 64% of the customers, and Waste Connections has 28% of the customers.
That's a massive discrepancy among market share. Well, what would you attribute the market share difference, 64%? Is it the pre-existing relationships or?
Yeah, some of it was that. Some of it was also the capacity. So when we went into December and we realized that we had to assign customers to Carter's because they were non-responsive, and as I mentioned in my testimony, the last thing we wanted to do is have a lapse in service, was that we offered all three Carters, all three awardees, an opportunity to equally distribute that remaining base. Borough-wide was the one that was willing to take those on, and the other two were not. So that was a big part of it.
They weren't willing to take on what?
To take on the unassigned customers at the end, right when we got to the beginning of the implementation period.
Oh, so you would attribute their market share to
Correct.
unassigned customers. They wanted to take them on and the others didn't.
Yeah, I mean, the other part of it too is they have the ability to negotiate. That was one of the things that we encourage for this zone, and that's the good things about this program, is that you negotiate against each other, the three zones, and that might be part of why Borough-wide has better rates depending on the customers.
Because they have a better capacity?
Yeah, well, they were the ones that were willing to take on those unassigned, the big bulk of the unassigned customers, but we offered it to all three Carters. Correct. Yeah.
And just to provide like additional color, so there was a huge footprint for existing customer base for Borough-wide and Waste Connections. So that's one factor. The other factor is that Basin, they also took additional customers, but they were at capacity, and they could take any more. We offered them more, but they stated that, hey, we're at full capacity. We want to be able to service our customers thoughtfully. Therefore, we cannot take on any more customers. But at the end of the day, like, our goal was to make sure that every single customer within Queens Central was assigned, had a Carter that was an awardee, and I think that we accomplished that, and I think that's a great testament to the program.
Some businesses, as discussed earlier, did not choose an awardee to contract with for their waste collection needs, so DSNY assigned awardees to businesses as required by law. How many businesses were involuntarily assigned in Queens Central because of an initial failure to choose an awardee?
So approximately 5,500 businesses were assigned a Carter in Queens Central.
Wait, so does that mean that 900 were voluntarily assigned?
No, that's the number, right? 5,500.
That's 685 were assigned.
Oh, right. 685 chose a Carter between the pre-assignment period and the assignment period.
So more than 80% were involuntarily assigned?
Correct. That's correct, right?
Repeat your question.
I'm trying to figure out what percentage were involuntarily assigned and what percentage were voluntarily assigned.
So just to back up a little bit, just to get our baseline numbers correct. Earlier, the commissioner mentioned that in the big registry, there's approximately 5,500 or 6,500 customers that were identified in the big registry. but due to our outreach, we identified an additional 1,500, bringing the total known customers of Queens Central to 8,000.
To what?
To 8,000 customers in Queens Central, a combination of our outreach and a combination of the BIC registry. So our baseline number is 8,000 known customers in Queens Central. The number of customers that we assigned end up being, just bear with me, 5,500. So out of the 8,000, 5,500 businesses were assigned through DSNY.
I mean, I think that's a big number of businesses that involuntarily do it.
Yes.
So I think that raises, I think, a lot of red flags. I mean, obviously, folks are participating, and you guys did what you had to do in terms of voluntarily assigning, but I'm concerned that businesses were involuntarily assigning. And in a way, you're a market participant when most of these, when Borough-wide now gets that share as well. I don't know, it strikes me as there's something weird here.
Chair, just one of the things I do want to highlight is that we, even after they were assigned a Carter, it's not like they were locked in for the remainder.
That's right, they can still negotiate afterwards.
Even after the start of the zone, after January 3rd, they were able to then, because at that point, some people might not have realized, like, oh, this is actually happening.
Correct.
Busy lives, you run a business, you got a lot of stuff going on. We recognize that. We gave them multiple opportunities to switch Carters and encourage them to negotiate.
So do you have the numbers on businesses that were assigned but then decided to switch by virtue of just negotiating?
Hi, Chair. Nearly 700 businesses chose a Carter between the pre-assignment and the assignment date. So of the ones that were assigned, almost 700 of them,
That went somewhere else?
they chose their own Carter at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's better. Provide some color here. Did you find that, and this gets at your really outreach in the future, are small customers more likely to need assignment than larger ones?
Yeah, so it was. I mean, as you mentioned, yes. So smaller businesses were more likely to receive an assignment.
Or more likely to?
To receive an assignment from the department. So like
Got it.
CVS, McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, they are more sophisticated, but the smaller customers were more likely to receive an assignment.
Do you have any idea by what margin, and obviously this all depends on what we define a big business versus small business, but I would like to understand, is it 80-20, 90-10, 60-40, in terms of assignments?
Yeah, we can look into that and get back to you.
That would be very helpful, because I think that, my guess is that it's a pretty big margin. I think obviously bigger businesses have more resources and smaller businesses do not. And so I think this is also going to be subject to conversation as part of the executive budget hearing on the budget, to making sure that our smaller businesses get the resources that they need to be in compliance. But definitely get us that margin, and we can figure out what we're going to define a big business or a small business when you send us that data. Let's just be in agreement on what definitions we're talking about when we get that data. Have businesses which were involuntarily assigned followed through on their contracts and pay the Carters on a monthly basis so far this year, to your knowledge?
So not all of them. There's still approximately 200 that have not paid the Carters on a monthly basis so far. What we end up doing is we send out enforcement, we issue them violations, and we remind them that, this is something that they're required to do. But yeah, there's still about 200 customers remaining.
And 200 haven't paid out of how many? Is it the 8,000?
8 out of 8,000.
So that's pretty high compliance on payment, you would say, right? Considering the huge number of businesses that had to be assigned, what lessons about commercial way zones outreach has DSNY learned from the implementation of the Queens Central Zone?
So, Chair, the department, we went through the zone. We physically knocked on every door of every known establishment in the zone. We've sent out mailers, we sent flyers, we've made phone calls, all urging them to sign up with an authorized CWZ carder. We had all the dominant languages in the zone translated. The department did everything within its power except for actual signing the contracts on behalf of the customers. And that's, I believe, is to the commissioner's point earlier, where we did extensive outreach, multiple conversations, visited the establishments multiple times. I don't know if it's just human nature, but it appears as though until it was near the end of the implementation period, is that when businesses began to sign and the needle moved. So I think what we've learned is that no matter how extensive our outreach was, it didn't move the needle in regards to signups. We were receiving like 1% signups like on a weekly basis, 2% signups. And then once we reached like the last 6 to 8 weeks, it jumped to 5% per week, 10%, that type of fluctuation.
I hate to bring it back to the composting, but I'm going to. I think your position that folks are starting to comply as closer they get to the deadline, it speaks to the power of a deadline and the power of enforcement, right? And when you take away deadlines, like, it doesn't impact behavior. So if the department held that same view when it came to composting, I find there to be a little bit of an inconsistency there. Because I know the commissioner testified that the closer to the deadline, that's why you truncated it from 4 months to 2 months, you saw that compliance skyrocket the closer you get to the effective date. And right now there is no effective date for the composting side. So I just want to say that there's a little bit of an inconsistency there. How has DSNY made assessments of awardees' equipment needs in order to begin service in Queens Central?
So as far as the equipment needs, that was all submitted through the RFP and then their plans. So one of the things that we've seen is when we go out and do those level 2 inspections that I mentioned, is that we are seeing the carters with newer trucks. But I think regardless of that, no matter if it's a brand new truck or a 20-year-old truck, it has to be up to standard. And we have seen that, like I mentioned before, we only had to take one of the trucks out of service, which is, it's one truck out of, a couple hundred of trucks. So that speaks volumes of that they stuck to their plan, and we've been closely monitoring that.
Thank you, Commissioner. How many new trucks have awardees purchased to perform collection services in Queens Central? And do you find that the new trucks meets the demand? Basically, is there enough capacity with the new trucks to perform the services needed?
So we have seen some new trucks. I think every carter submitted different plans. They all had different timelines as far as like their operations. But just, to my point that I just made, is that regardless of what the truck is new or not, it has to be in compliance. So if it's not in compliance, we take it out of service, and that's one of the things that we look for through our enforcement mechanism.
And my last question before I let my colleagues ask some questions. I promise I have a lot more after they ask questions. Does DSNY intend to conduct a study or report on lessons learned during the implementation of commercial waste zones in Queens Central? You did mention that you have a lot of data from that. Could that be turned into a study or a report?
Yeah, so we do intend on reporting on Queens Central as far as any recommendations or anything we found in our annual report to the council.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm not going to turn it. First, I would like to acknowledge that Councilmember Palladino has joined us. And with questions, I'll first begin with Councilmember Nurse.
Thank you, Chair. Just for the composting, the pause on it, can you state for the record, while you're under oath, did this order come from DSNY up or from the mayor's office down?
So I think it was a combination. We have heard from residences when we were out there doing collections, and that was one of the things that we saw, some of the confusion as far as the types of, containers that they can use, that they can use plastic bags, things like that. So I think it was one of the things that, we felt and supported.
Was there like a quantitative, like how many number of complaints you all had?
No, we don't have that right now.
Okay, so just loose anecdotal complaints.
Correct.
And so the order to stop came from you all?
Correct.
From DSNY?
Yes.
You issued some kind of communication requesting it to stop?
Coordination.
I just want to be very clear.
Right. Well, I think one of the things we have to step back and look at is that we are still issuing warnings, which look like summonses. They have a lot of information, and we're not stopping service. And I think that it got a lot of attention when we first rolled it out, and I think people are aware of it now. We're going to continue to do that. And as long as we're continuing service, that's a big part of it. We're not stopping service.
Your position that you will not put an enforcement period back on the books?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Are you planning to enforce this again?
That is the plan in the future, correct.
Do you have a time period?
Don't have a timeline yet.
Okay. So to me, this feels a little bit like an arbitrary decision because DSNY has made decisions over the last 2 years about what it can enforce quickly and what it can't. The law that the curbside organics law took a long time to negotiate. It wasn't the first time that it was brought before the agency. We completely retailored it and restructured it to fit the former commissioner's vision, including in a very extensive period of just warnings. So how is it that you have a rationale that you had to stop enforcement for that, but you could enforce everything else very quickly? Buying new trash cans that allegedly are rat-proof, stopping the enforcement on supplemental cleaning that they now have to put their bags into bins, a bunch of other things that you all have rolled out and enforced. So it just feels like it's poor reasoning.
So, council member, you mentioned the bid rule, which we did the same thing. We extended the...
By how long?
By 6 months.
Okay, and you have an enforcement date, right?
Right now, yes.
Right. And you all intend to enforce that, right?
Well, I don't want to write what I mentioned in one of my previous testimonies.
We never really want tickets, but
right. That's not the goal here.
We have millions and millions of people here in this city.
Right.
And there are carrots and there are sticks. We have sticks because people don't always do the right thing. You saw that when you put out the enforcement, people were participating in greater numbers. We all saw the headlines. So great that you might need to open up new sites. I just find it to be trying to affect us with poor reason. I reject it. But I'll move on. For Local Law 199, some of the things, I would love to hear more about the data more in detail, but the market consolidation feels like the uncertainty that was caused by the pause is what has forced people to sell or make rash decisions because they simply just weren't sure what was going to happen. And we've been harping on that for a very, very long time. I feel like that is that was always going to be something that happened, but I feel like what has happened was the creation of DSNY's pause. So I just wanted to say that as a comment, but I'd really like to know more about the data that you've collected, vehicle miles, the amounts of waste disposed and recycled from businesses, tracking transfers, which transfer stations, recycling facilities, compost or digestion facilities, waste from Central Queens Zone is traveling to, tonnage, what can you tell us?
So we plan on distributing that or in an annual report, and the information that we're going to be required to put in there will be in.
There's nothing you could share with us today?
It's a little too premature to share any of that right now, Councilmember.
I mean, this is a hearing on commercial waste zones. It could have been useful to have some information. Can you just lay out in the simplest terms why you are unable, just like talk to us like we're children, I guess. Why are you unable to implement so few zones over the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, a big part of that is making sure that we don't have any customer issues and that the carters themselves are aware that they have to either scale up, and then the non-awardees obviously have to then ramp down. So
But the Carters, how long have they known they've been awarded zones?
since the RFP process.
Can you put the date on the record? When did they get their award letters? Their final?
Councilmember, 30 more seconds.
I hear you, sir.
Can you?
I think it was first quarter of 2024.
First quarter of 2024. So do you, do you not think that they're prepared?
Well, we have to tell
Scale
them, we're
up.
going to tell them that they're, as we roll out the zones, we're going to give them 6 months period so they can be prepared.
Okay, I'll come back for a second round. Thank you.
I'd like to acknowledge Councilmember Salamanca has joined us. Councilmember Schwang, questions?
Thank you, Chair. I have to say, Commissioner, our area is very happy. We love the idea doing composting, but not get fines. After people, we had a lot of constituents coming with fines, and a lot of them seniors, they don't know how to recycle. We did education in our office. That's our goal, to save our city, not just give fines. I totally support you guys, and I think that's a good idea, because now everything is so expensive, we cannot afford everything, and also the fines. And then I have the other question is, I work with SBS about they come to some stores and they tell them, this is illegal, can you fix it? That is illegal, can you fix it? But I have a lot of street vendors, and also outside, like I don't know what that called, they sell fruits, vegetables outside. That, I spoke to SBS, they said this is belong to sanitation. Is there any way you guys can create a partnership with SBS, because they already know the community, they already have people look inside the store, and then in the same time they can look outside the store and educate the community which one is legal, which one not illegal. That will help a lot of small business service in my area.
Absolutely, it sounds like a great idea. We'll be glad to work. We work closely with SBS on other fronts. We'll be
Can
glad
we
to.
set a timeline to create something, work with SBS? I don't need you to give me all the information today. Can we work together, set up someday, and give them training so they can come to the community to, when they inspect the stores or new stores open, they can tell them how to set up outside stands, how to be a street vendor, because giving fine is not our goal. We want people follow the rules and also be successful in their business, be happy what they are doing, and also don't get fines. I feel right now they only know, SBS told me they only know what's inside store, they don't have idea outside store. Do we able to set a timeline?
So I would be glad to, after this hearing, reach out to SBS and coordinate something immediately, and we'll be in contact with your office on when that's going to happen, but be glad to work with.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councilmember Banks?
Thank you, Chair. The DSNY website states that we have broken the 5 boroughs into 20 commercial waste zones and established new non-cost contracts with the Carters authorized to work in each zone. Can you clarify what the no-cost contracts actually mean, and who bears the financial burden under this model set forth by DSNY? Is it the Carterers or the businesses?
Councilmember, are you referring to the program themselves, like once they're awarded its own?
Correct.
So the Carters, the awardees, are required to pay an annual administrative fee,
Right.
which is
Mr.
paid.
Commissioner, my apologies. I'd like to acknowledge Julie Menon. She has another hearing she has to chair. Thank you so much.
Okay.
You may proceed.
Okay. Councilmember, each awardee has to pay an annual administrative fee, which is paid it to the department.
Excellent. How were the carters selected for each commercial waste zone, and what criteria or process was used to ensure that the selection was conducted fairly and with equitable consideration for all the applicants?
I'll pass it on to Commissioner Marshall.
So yes, there was a RFP that was issued.
Okay.
The carters applied. There was an evaluation committee that judged these submissions based off of 3 criteria: 40% pricing, the other piece was capacity and operations, and compliance, which was safety. So based off of those 3 factors, scores were compiled and we awarded the contracts.
Okay. With the CWZ system assigning zones as a limited number of approval carters, what will be the impact on the small independent cartering companies that were not selected? And are there any efforts in place to support these mom and pop businesses, or does this effectively force them out of the industry?
So I can take that. So Councilmember, so it was designed to take all carters from all different types of sizes. I'll give you some stats here. So 10 of the carters are small operators, which each of them serving less than 1% of the waste customers. 7 of them are medium operators, and they're serving 1 to 3% of the customers, and then 9 are a large operator, and they're serving more than 3% of the customers. So together, they're all serving about 82% of all the commercial waste customers, but the 10 small operators are, in the awardees and have, presence in the future zones.
Okay, when it comes to local implementation, my council district includes a wide range of commercial activity, from small businesses to industrial, what we call IBZs. How is it that the CWZ zone is addressing the specific needs for these different commercial entities, and what kind of support or outreach is being provided during this transition?
So the small businesses, I think, are one of the things, as we mentioned earlier, that when we go out and do outreach, we focus on a little bit more because they have a bit of a harder time. They're not as elaborate as a chain store or a big company. But that's part of our outreach plan. We have a company, an MWBE company, that we use for outreach. And they go out and they provide any kind of support or any kind of information. And obviously that we have our portal that any customers are able to email us, call 311, or go through our online service portal and then issue any questions or complaints there.
Okay, thank you for that. Lastly, I attempted to use the Calculate Maximum Prices tool on your website, but when I entered several addresses into it, the response that I received was TBD, this zone has not yet been scheduled for rollout. Can you clarify what this means in practical terms for businesses in these areas, and when they expect the rollout to begin, and how will they be notified when it's time to select a new carter and enter into a new agreement?
I'll pass it on to Deputy Commissioner Eisenberg.
Thanks, Councilmember. So the tool that you're referring to, the address search, identifies the zones that are active. So the TBD just refers to the fact that the zone is not active or live, but you can still use the maximum price calculating tool to get an estimate of the pricing based upon the maximum pricing based upon your set of criteria. So the tool is still usable for people in the zone, so they could preemptively learn about what pricing would be for them when those zones roll out. Regarding the schedule, I think today we released a plan for when the schedule and the order of implementation, and as the commissioner had testified earlier, that we will be, once we do the Bronx East and West is rolled out, then we will release further schedules thereafter.
And if I can get 30 more seconds.
I'll give you 30 because
Yeah,
Salamanca
do
needs to go
apologize.
next.
And I had a question on community engagement. What specific steps is the Department of Sanitation taking to ensure businesses within the 42nd Council District and across the city are well informed about the CWZ rollout? And how is this information being shared to help businesses understand their options from selecting unauthorized carters, how pricing structures may change, and what the broader impact will be on the commercial corridors?
So, council member, I think once we roll out to your district, you're going to find that we're going to implement some of the practices that I mentioned, the door-to-door canvassing, and the vendor that I mentioned is called Metropolitan Strategies. So they have multilingual fluency. They have experience with New York City's diverse business environment. And they are trained to engage with a wide range of businesses, which include like retail restaurants and offices, any industrial sites, and then things like that. They have, we have prioritized language equity. So we have outreach materials that are translated, and outreach staff that are fluent in Spanish, Mandarin, Cantonese, Russian, just to name a few. There's a lot more. And then obviously we have the customer feedback and communication channels, as I mentioned before, our web form 311, and then an email where a dedicated email inbox where our staff is able to take complaints. So that's how we're going to support that.
Thank you for.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. I would also like to recognize we have Councilmember Vernikov on Zoom. Councilmember Palladino, you don't have any questions, correct? All right, we're moving on. Getting back to commercial waste zones questions. DSNY's commercial waste zone study concluded that the existing commercial waste collection system was highly inefficient and resulted in private waste collection trucks traveling more than 23 million miles per year. By dividing the city into exclusive zones in which only assigned carters could operate, the study found that vehicle miles traveled could be decreased 49 to 68%, with the largest reductions occurring in Manhattan and the Bronx. Other beneficial outcomes include improved safety and reduced noise pollution and air pollutions. Does DSNY have data on vehicle miles traveled by designated haulers in Central Queens Zone before and after CWZ implementation?
So one of the things that I mentioned before is our annual report, which I believe is due to be released in September of this year. And those are one of the things that we will look to report on is the vehicle miles traveled.
Yeah, why didn't the agency have that information ready for today?
Well, I think one of the things that we're working through is on the technology platform. We rolled out Queens Central. The main focus was making sure that customers were assigned carters, the billing issues, any customer complaints, the enforcement thing, the enforcement issues, as I mentioned, that, us being out there, having our presence. Not to say that vehicle miles traveled are not important, because that is one of the things we want to highlight, and we did look forward to improving once we rolled out all the zones. But in parallel with doing all that, we were getting our technology platforms ready. And that's one of the things that we're still making sure that we don't want to prematurely report on something that's still early, so we will have it ready by the September deadline.
So what technology are you guys looking into? When will the technology be implemented? And the data that's going to be in the September report, would that be from the day that you use the technology moving forward?
I'll pass it on to Deputy Commissioner Eisenberg.
Hi, Chair. So the technology is implemented in effect. So we're collecting telematics data from the trucks that gets brought into our systems. We have DSNY.
Already?
Correct. So part of the NTP requirement was that all carters have that integration completed and ready to go before they can even sign on customers. So that was all integrated into the system. What the commissioner was referring to as far as the technology piece is that when we're getting all of this data in, that data now has to be analyzed and reviewed, and we're getting in daily data from trucks like pings and all that data that has to come in. We have to do an analysis of that data that has to be brought in, and we have reporting tools that we're working and we're tuning to identify, like, for example, if a truck were to travel outside of the zone, with one zone operational, when someone travels outside of the zone, is it because they were traveling outside of the zone legitimately or illegitimately? So identifying false positives and knowing when we need to audit or review a carter's behavior.
Look, we just, vehicle miles traveled is a huge part of the legislative intent. And so we want to make sure that the department is taking this just as seriously as it's taking up, everything else that it did in the initial rollout. VMT is chief among the reasons why this happened.
Chair, we agree with you. It's a very important part of this program, essential, and it's one of our top priorities.
So we'll have that data by September, correct?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay. I wish I had it today, but I just wanted the advocates to know that I'm equally upset with you guys. Is DSNY tracking which transfer stations, recycling facilities, and compost or digestion facilities waste from the Queens Central Zone is traveling to, and recording tonnage or truck trips to each facility used?
Hi, Chair. So the commercial vendors report quarterly average tons per day to DSNY and annual tonnage to DEC about all materials accepted at transfer stations in New York City, which are jointly permitted by both agencies. We do not yet have access to the data regarding the waste in the transfer stations, and so we'll get back to you on that.
Do you think you'll be able to get us that information?
We will have that as part of our annual report.
Okay. I'll let my colleague, Councilmember Salamanca, ask a few questions before I proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My apologies. I had a bill being heard next door. Commissioner, welcome. Good morning. First, I want to thank you for the walkthrough that we did in my district a few weeks ago. It meant a lot for you to go to different parts of my district that are suffering, one from the opioid crisis on 3rd Avenue, 149th Street, also highlighting the illegal dumping that we're having, and it's unfortunate. A lot of it is from individuals that are illegally selling fruits in our communities, and they don't have a place to store or to get to dispose of their fruits that they cannot sell. And so it's unfortunate that our communities are suffering from that. And then coming down to the Hunts Point community, right, to see how illegal dumping is affecting an industrial part of our district. And you were swift with your actions, and especially your chief. He deserves whatever accommodation or raise you want to give him, believe it or not. So just make sure you tell him that. And I just wanted to say thank you. Commissioner, so in Hunts Point, I have commercial waste transfer stations, transfer waste stations. And it was one of the biggest parts of our conversations back in 2017, 2018, when I was here in the council. And it still continues to be. I was in the Hunts Point fish market yesterday, and I drove by, and I saw the transfer stations. Now, one of the frustrations that some of the businesses had when the commercial waste zones were, when you were allocating routes to them, were that there were many waste companies that pick up commercial waste in Hunts Point that were not awarded those contracts locally, and they were awarded contracts outside of the district. And so if you can please speak a little bit on that, because I found it a little frustrating to think that we wanted to eliminate the amount of trucks that are driving through our communities, but you have businesses in the community that can pick up garbage in the community, but they were not awarded the contracts in the community. They were awarded contracts in other boroughs.
So I'll just speak to part of the RFP process. I think a lot of that was evaluated. The operations and capacity. I will pass it on to Assistant Commissioner Frank Marshall for a little bit more detail, but some of the operations, the capacity might have had a lot to do with it, and then the pricing. So those are the things that might have driven that, but do you want to speak a little bit about some of the Bronx awardees?
So, how you doing? I think one of the pleasing things about the awardees in Bronx East and Bronx West is that these awardees have a high existing relationship with the customers. So, for example, in Bronx West, your customer base is already serviced by 75% of the awardees. So they'll still maintain those relationships. 25% will be affected, but the Bronx West had one of the highest percentages of existing customers served by Carters. And then in the Bronx East, it's almost 60%. So there is a delta, and as Commissioner mentioned before, there was a competitive RFP process with several categories. But for the Bronx East and the Bronx West, you know, those zones have a high customer base.
I'm sorry, how many of these Carters in the Bronx East are actually from the Bronx East or from the Bronx that were awarded these contracts?
We'll have to get back to you on that. You mean like their company location?
Yeah.
We'll have to get back to
You don't have that information in front of you?
I don't have the headquarters of these companies at my fingertips.
So, because what I'm trying to get at is, you have companies in other boroughs coming in and picking up garbage in my district and taking it back to other boroughs, when I have companies in my district that can pick up their own garbage. It makes no sense.
Fair enough.
And so I'm trying to understand, and I know that we cannot get involved in the RFP process. That's your process. But now you've made your decision. So now I can put in my input on your decision. And I just think that your decision just contradicts the purpose of having trucks driving around through communities when they shouldn't have.
Understood. Yep. I mean, as Commissioner mentioned, in the RFP, the categories unfortunately did not include, if the awardee had a location in the zone that they're applying for.
So that was not part of the RFP process in terms of the distance that they will be driving to their businesses and their headquarters?
That was a consideration.
Yeah, Councilmember, the VMT was part of the calculation. What Commissioner Marshall was saying is that the location of the headquarters was not a consideration in the RFP process of whether they were based in the zone or the borough.
All right. May I have just one more question, Mr. Chair? Thank you very much. The other concern was the prices going up for the prices towards the businesses. Now that they have a zone, so there's no competition. Have we seen an increase in prices?
Excuse me. So I believe that as far as one of the Carters in Bronx East and Bronx West, they receive one of the highest rate reductions by 7%, and that's Action. So they had achieved some of the largest rate reductions in the two zones.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember. All right, I'm going to now pivot to another set of questions before I let my colleague here, Mr. Ressler, ask a few questions. Awardees are required to keep rates for collection of recyclable materials lower than rates for collection of refuse. What data was collected in Queens Central regarding waste diversion?
Okay, apologies for that. So some of the data that we collected for Queens Central were the cost and volume of solid waste, recyclables, and collection and disposal, the diversion of commercial waste from landfill, and any change to such diversion as compared to the previous fiscal year, and then the feasibility of accepted commercial waste at MTSs, and the amount of proportion of commercial waste received at the Marine Transfer Station. But then, as you know, we've mentioned in the testimony and throughout, is that the the great things about the ZWZ is that on average that we anticipate that businesses may save up to 32% on recycling and rates, and then 18% on composting compared to traditional garbage collection.
Approximately how much waste has been diverted from landfill in Queens Central since the zone's implementation?
I believe that that is a little under 2% at initial, the initial 4 months. For
My apologies, 2%?
a little under 2%, yeah,
Of what? Sorry.
of the compostable material.
Okay. Low, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, we encourage them to, if you know, they're encouraged because they save up, like I mentioned, up to 18% on the rate. So they are encouraged to compost and, divert more of that, but that's one of the things that, we will continue to do with outreach.
Do you think that the passage of the bill I've introduced on separation of organics for business would improve that number?
Absolutely, that's one of the things that I think will definitely help. I think the previous local law was a little bit, maybe a little bit too confusing. A lot of different variables. I think your bills definitely will help that.
Would you think 2%, even without my bill expanding the scope, 2% is still low within the covered businesses under the law? So how would, I don't know if you caught that, Commissioner.
I apologize. I stand corrected. It's 2% have signed up for organics collection. It wasn't 2% diversion.
Okay, what is the diversion?
We don't have that number right now.
We need that number on
Okay.
on diversion. And I would also like to know why only 2% have signed up. What do you attribute that number to?
Well, I think aside from, I don't know why anybody would want to save money on the rate, but I think it's not mandatory for them to recycle, which I think your bill will help that, as you mentioned before.
You may not know the exact percentage, but under law as it is right now, what percentage of businesses under CWZ are required to compost?
We don't have those current numbers of how many businesses are required to compost today.
Because that would give me a better understanding of, that'll give me a better understanding of why the composting, to see which businesses are subject to the requirement and figuring out, of those businesses subject to the requirement, how many of them are actually participating. In past hearings, we've asked about like fining for composting, for businesses, and I don't think we got data for that. So we just need to get more data on this. Hopefully we get that rather quickly. What portion of organic waste collected by awardees in the Queens Central Zone is processed in New York City?
Chair, we do not have that data yet. The rollout of the commercial waste zones and associated data collection will bring more transparency to these material streams and its management. So we'll have that soon.
Okay. How soon?
As part of our annual report.
Okay. So by September. Of the portion that is processed in New York City, what portion of it goes to a composting facility? Same answer.
Yeah, so Chair, awardees are required to tell us where the material goes. We're compiling that data now for the first time in the city's history, and some of this data will be included in our annual report.
Which processing methods are used for organic waste collected by awardees in the Queens Central Zone, which is not processed in New York City?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the organic waste that leaves the city may go to facilities for composting or anaerobic digestion. None of it is allowed to go directly to landfill under commercial waste zone contracts. Some of this data will be included, as we talked about, in our annual report.
I'm going to keep asking the questions. How many businesses in the Queens Central Zone have opted to have their organic waste collected by a micro hauler instead of an awardee carter?
Thank you, Chair. There are no micro haulers operating in Queens Central right now.
Has DSNY outreach to businesses included information about the option to have organic waste collected by a micro hauler?
No, DSNY is not aware of any such activity.
All right. I want to quickly pivot to, actually, I'll let Councilmember Ressler ask his questions before I proceed.
Chair Bray, that is very generous of you, and I want to just commend you for your stellar leadership of this committee and for your really thoughtful and high caliber legislation that we're having hearings on today. Commissioner and team, it's always great to see you. Greatly appreciate your work on this. I have to say, though, the timing of commercial waste zones is just deeply, deeply frustrating. I'm sure for you as well. You know, we say that this law was passed in 2019, but it's like that was 3 years after there was already a handshake agreement between the council and the mayor's office to support this legislation, and we got held up in an incredibly slow and painful environmental review process. So really, we're talking about 2016 is when everyone who's worked on this and cared about this, and the council members and the administration at the time, actually shook hands and said, we're gonna get commercial waste zones done. And so now we're essentially a decade later. We're in one district in Central Queens. We've got 2 more in the Bronx coming later this year. It's going to take another 2 years plus till we get citywide. What's it going to take to go faster? Is it a resource issue? Is it a staffing issue? How do we help support the Department of Sanitation to get this done more quickly? Because as you lay out in your testimony, this will be so incredibly important for improving safety in our communities by reducing the numbers of trucks, by improving the standards for workers, by improving environmental outcomes, by improving so much of improving efficiency for businesses. Like, this is good for everybody. It's just too slow. So can you walk me through what are the impediments? What are the things that we could do to go faster to get this done more quickly?
Thank you, Councilmember. So I think one of the things, there's 2 sides of it, right? I think going faster, I think that we will miss something, and I mean that in the sense of, customer issues, safety. Those are one of the bigger priorities here, because the last thing we want to do is have customers have any kind of pricing issues or disputes. And I think that's one of the things with Queens Central that we saw and we're successful, where virtually no complaints. And I think on the Carter side too is one of the things we have to remember. They have a big part of this as well, because we can go out and do outreach. The business it's their responsibility to negotiate the rate, but then the Carter that they select has to still upload these contracts and be able to provide the service. So I hear you, council member, and I want to move as fast as we can, but I think we want to be careful to sacrifice any kind of issues and having this program then be scrapped because we have so many issues and safety issues. But I think the Carters have a big part of this as well. Like some of them, as I mentioned before, there's 10 of these Carters that are smaller Carters. If we move fast, they might not have the ability to keep up. So I think it's on both sides. I think the plan we laid out commits us to, this is the end of 2027. So, that's our commitment today. And I think that holds us to task on making sure that this gets done. But I hear your frustration, and one of those things that if we can move faster, we will, but I think we just want to be careful to not sacrifice customer issues and pricing and safety.
So I heard that there could be capacity issues on the Carter side for engagement with the businesses. Are there capacity or resource issues on the department side? Because you all do big, complex things every day. I have a lot of faith and confidence in the Department of Sanitation and your ability to handle big, complex citywide operations and ability to move quickly to implement them. So are there challenges internally, resource needs internally that you all have? Is there appropriate, how many staff are working right now on CMZs?
I believe
16
16 staff members working on ZWZ, and we are actually actively working with OMB on adding additional
Say that number
staff.
again, I got distracted.
16 staff members. 16
And is
positions.
that adequate for a budding citywide initiative?
Right, so no, we're working with OMB on adding additional staff. 19?
I know they're always very cooperative with the Department of Sanitation.
They are.
That was, just to be clear, that was sarcasm for everyone in the audience. But I said it, the department didn't. So 16, what do you think is the necessary headcount to be able to manage this initiative?
I'm getting that for you, is it? Additional, I think a total. 30, I think in total about 30 positions, so probably an additional.
30 additional or
No,
30
total, total.
So you're looking at about a need for 30 full-time headcount. You're trying to ramp this up over the next 2 years citywide. We have half of that headcount in place.
Right.
Any expectation there'll be additional headcount included in exec?
Yeah, I think we are. I think OMB is definitely working with us on this, and they recognize that that we need some additional resources for that.
And if they gave you those resources in this budget, would you be able to revisit your timelines and roll this out faster?
No, I think that's what anticipated having that scale of resources on our end is why
In this budget?
Yeah.
And is that your full staffing needs? 30, will you need additional headcount for next year and beyond?
For the first 10 to 30 will suffice, but then we'll need to ramp up after the.
Okay, do you want?
We believe we will be staffed adequately, and we'll reevaluate if our additional needs are necessary with OMB.
Okay, I mean, I'm just trying to understand, and then I'll shut up, Chair, but we're trying to get to 30 headcount. We're looking to have 3 zones in place for this year for a portion of Queens and the Bronx. Our borough's population is multiple times the size of the Bronx, and we don't have a timeline for Brooklyn. Do we have a timeline for Brooklyn?
No, but one of the things is I think we'll have a better firm position once we roll out the Bronx. But the schedule has been released, so you are able to tell what the next phase Brooklyn is. Brooklyn is broken up into different zones.
Okay. I mean, look, I think that this is really important. Chair cares about this. This council cares about it. This is going to make a really big difference in the quality of life in our communities, and we want to get it out there as quickly as possible. This is a win for the city of New York, for the workers, for the businesses, for the people. We need to get it done and get it done faster. And then I would just be remiss if I didn't take a second to say this was the baby of Councilmember Antonio Reynoso at the time, now our borough president, and he really poured blood, sweat, and tears into building this coalition up, into getting this legislation over the finish line, and made this an enormous priority of the previous council, and I just want to credit him. And I know that if he was sitting in my seat and grilling you all today, he would have his hair on fire with the timelines that we're working on. And so I'm channeling him because I think this is really important, and I do hope that you all will come back with opportunities for us to go faster. Thank you, Chair.
I agree that Borough President Reynoso's hair would be on fire right now. And you don't have to shut up. I love your voice, Lincoln. I love your voice. I want to just piggyback off of what Lincoln was mentioning. So I did have a question about how many DSNY staff was hired for Queens Central. Is it 16? Or is it under that right now?
Yeah, our commercial waste zone staff is dedicated to all commercial waste zone activity, not specifically for Queens Central, but to make this rollout successful.
Do you know how much it would count in terms of how much you would need from some of the budget to increase headcount to the 30 that you're asking for in this year's budget?
We don't have that here with us. We'll get back to you.
All right, if you can prepare OMB Director Jock for the executive budget on that, because we're definitely going to ask about that. What is the overall budget for the Queens Central implementation?
So the overall budget for FY25 is 5.4 million, and that the breakout is 2.7 of that is for PS costs, and then 2.7 of that is for OTPS costs.
How much revenue has the city generated through the commercial waste zones fee by awardees in Queens Central? My understanding is that awardees are required to pay an annual fee of $107,000 a year.
Correct. Correct, Chair. So for FY25, the actual revenue is approximately $739,000.
Everyone paid their fee?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to now pivot to my last set of questions before I call over BIC. And it would be great when I transition to BIC if maybe you can keep one person from DSNY just in case there's an overlap on a question. Are you okay with that, Commissioner?
Sure.
Market activity. After a pause in market activity while trade waste companies awaited DSNY's selection of CWZ awardees, market consolidation picked up in 2024. In September 2024, Awardee Waste Connections, which received 12 zone contracts plus a citywide contract, acquired Awardee Royal Waste Services, the latter of which had assets including a transfer station and recycling facilities. The two companies overlapped in the Queens West commercial waste zone and put Waste Connections over the 15 zone maximum imposed on awardees. To come into compliance with the 15 zone threshold, Waste Connections reportedly agreed to withdraw its contract to provide collection services in the Brooklyn Southwest CWZ. However, DSNY still lists the company as one of the 3 awardees in that zone. Has DSNY identified a company that will replace the Royal in Queens West, or will customers in that zone be forced to pick between 2 awardees?
No, Chair. So customers, once we roll out Queens West, will definitely be able to select from the 3 different awardees. We expect to move forward with identifying that 3rd awardee by this fall.
And how would that process be determined? Is it based off of an existing list, or would there be a rebid?
Yeah, Chair, the current process is to refer back to the RFP scores, engage in review of the next highest scorer in the zone.
Is that information public on the scorecard, or is it not? Is it public or not?
No.
Okay. Has DSNY identified a company that will replace the Royal in Queens West? Sorry, I already answered that question. If an awardee sells to another awardee and both of them have contracts in the same zone, thereby lowering the number of awardees in that zone to 2, what will be DSNY's process to select a new awardee in that zone?
So the current process is to refer back to the RFP scores and then engage in a review of the next highest scorer in the zone. If the next highest scorer in the zone is still capable and interested in providing services in that zone, we would then enter into negotiations with that Carter.
Which, if any, concerns has DSNY worked to address regarding the sale of non-awardee Carters to commercial waste zones awardees? And can you please describe what that work has been?
So our contracts with the awardees give us the broad authority to review any merger or consolidation with a non-awardee or another awardee. Any company acquired by an awardee must still follow all commercial waste zone rules and will be subject to DSNY oversight.
Thank you. I'm now going to ask Councilmember Palladino to ask her questions.
Thank you, Chair. This whole thing has got me a little baffled. I don't understand when we were talking, if I missed this, please tell me that I did, and you'll have to repeat yourself. We're all a little, can you explain to me what this is with the grease? We've got brown grease and we've got yellow grease. What is this?
Councilmember, I think that we'll defer those questions to BIC.
What's that?
We'll defer those questions to the Business Integrity Commission, who will testify after us.
Looked at today's itinerary. I've never seen so much obsession with garbage. I don't understand what the heck is going on. When picking up garbage has now become a huge event. You know, we recycle, we do everything that we're supposed to do, and now we're falling into a whole nother aspect of sanitation and picking up and fining and defining and everything like that. And for the most part, the average Jane and Joe have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. So we as a council member, myself as a council member, I need to take this back to my constituents. And I need to try to help them understand what I don't understand. So it makes life very difficult. I live in a northeast, District 19, which is Northeast Queens. Everything seems to be pretty much under control, thank you, in Northeast Queens. So when I see all this legislation coming about, and the people out there are not understanding it, as I said, neither am I, everybody seemed to have gotten rid of their garbage pretty well prior to 2024. Now, 2024, everything got all really complicated, So I want to thank you, going to jump to something else. I want to thank you for putting off the fining of single-family homes as well as small multi-dwellings, even though it's just a postponement. I don't believe people need to be fined for the way in which if they separate their garbage with the plastic and the glass and the metals, and we do our due diligence to do all of that. Adding compost to the everyday person and fining them, I think, is an unnecessary burden. And again, a lot of people don't understand it, what they need to do and all of that. So I don't believe the fine should be I don't think this should be mandatory in any way, shape, or form. We, the Common Sense Caucus, has put in legislation to make it voluntary composting, not mandatory composting. You know, you have your reasons, I'm sure, but I just simply do not understand now about grease disposal. Are we talking about automotive grease? Are we talking about household grease? What are you guys talking about?
So Vic will testify after us, and I believe defer to Commissioner Crotty on your question.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, this panel is adjourned. Is excused.
And Assistant Commissioner Frank Marshall will stay back as you requested to answer any.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. Thank you.
And I only have a few questions for Commissioner Elizabeth Crotty. And we'll administer the oath again. Thank you for being patient with us, Commissioner. Just give me a 2-minute intermission, guys. I'm going to have the committee counsel administer the oath.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Elizabeth Crotty and Nicole Matias. Thank you for being here. Thank you for raising your right hands. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and to respond honestly to council member questions?
I do.
Thank you. You may begin your statement when ready.
Good morning, now good afternoon, Chair Abreu and members of the City Council Committee on Sanitation and Solid Waste Management. My name is Liz Crotty, Commissioner and Chair of the Business Integrity Commission, better known as BIC. BIC regulates companies operating in the commercial waste, or rather trade waste industry, and the city's wholesale public food markets. Our focus is ensuring that these industries operate fairly, safely, and without corruption, while protecting customers. Our regulatory mission is achieved through in-depth review of every application received from companies seeking a BIC license or registration, depending on the type of waste they haul. The commercial waste zone awardees haul refuse and recyclables from businesses in the city and represent a subset of the 1,900 total trade waste licensees and registrants. CWZ does not impact BIC licensees and registrants that haul other types of material from businesses like construction demolition debris, used cooking grease, medical waste, on-call junk removal, or businesses that are approved for self-hauler registrations to perform their own waste removal, such as landscapers. Like all BIC licensees and registrants, the CWZ carters will continue to apply for the renewal of their BIC license every 2 years, including while CWZ is ongoing, go through the BIC review process, which focuses on good character, honesty, and integrity of applicants. BIC and DSNY have a long-standing partnership, and the two agencies are in continuous contact from the leadership level down. Our agencies share information and data, work together through the CWZ Safety Task Force, and collaborate on other matters as needed. Anecdotally, under the Adams administration, crashes involving CWZ licensees are down 60% in 2024 compared to 2023, and overall, for BIC, violations have increased 110%. Intro 784 concerns grease haulers, one type of specialty waste explicitly exempt from CWZ. There are several issues with Intro 784, and BIC respectfully requests further engagement with the Council to address these matters. First, with regard to the proposed new section 16-529, the proposed reporting requirements are duplicative of the customer registers BIC already collects per its customer register rule for licensees, who are the carters. Customer registers are lists from the licensees/carters of all their customers, which include businesses, name, address, date, and in the case of Intro 784, quantity of grease collected from the previous quarter. This can be found in Section 5-03, subsection G of Title 17 of the Rules of the City of New York. BIC sends directives to remind licensees of the customer register rule and to submit before the due date via our online portal. When a licensee fails to adhere to this rule, BIC issues a violation with the intent of collecting the customer register. BIC maintains the customer registers and uses the data for various regulatory enforcement purposes. This data is not publicly available as it is considered the Carter's company's proprietary business information and also includes personal identifying information. The information sought under paragraph 4 of subdivision B regarding the facility where the grease is disposed is already collected as part of the DSNY semi-annual tonnage survey of the Carters, which BIC helps to facilitate. Finally, BIC has concerns about the utility of the reporting requirement by subdivision C of the proposed section of 16-529 as it falls outside the scope and authority delineated from the city charter. BIC simply does not have regulatory jurisdiction over commercial establishments, including those at issue here, food service establishments that generate grease. It is beyond the scope and authority of BIC's mandate delineated in the city charter. BIC is happy to work with the council to address any concerns or constituent complaints, whether they be about grease haulers or any other matter under our authority. please always feel free to contact me or my team directly or share with your constituents BIC's complaint submission portal, which is linked on the homepage of our website. Thank you for the opportunity to share our concerns about Intro 784. BIC welcomes the opportunity to discuss the goals of the bill further with the sponsors today.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to ask questions that may have been repeated, that may have been mentioned to DSNY, but in this case for you. If an awardee sells another awardee, if another awardee sells to another awardee, and both of them have contracts in the same zone, thereby lowering the number of awardees in that zone to 2, what is BIC's process to select a new awardee in that zone?
We have no role in picking the awardees in zones. The only role BIC has is we do get sales applications and we review the sale application, but per our rules that have nothing to do with CWZ, those are the rules that guide us, nothing to do with zones.
Thank you. Which, if any, concerns has BIC worked to address regarding the sale of non-awardee carders to commercial waste zones awardees, and can you please describe that work?
Well, again, we're guided by, not by commercial waste zones, but by our rules and regulations set out in the city code. So our sales applications and subcontracts all have to be verified and put through the BIC rules, and that's what we adhere to for the companies.
1 second. Between January 2014 and April 2025, BIC issued approximately 3,086 notices of violations to companies operating in the trade waste industry. More than 2,000 of the 3,086 violations issued over this period were settled, including pending and early settlements. Half of fines issued were $2,500 or less. Approximately 10% of those 3,086 BIC violations included citations to awardees. What is, can you please describe BIC's enforcement activity involving Queens Central awardees, and if enforcement is occurring, what is the breakdown in types of violations?
Well, first, BIC is not doing enforcement in Queens Central. That is under the exclusive purview of DSNY. Second of all, BIC, since the Adams administration has started, we have created a violations unit. There was a backlog of over 1,000 unissued violations when I came to BIC in 2022. We have since gone through those. In 2021, the penalty schedule was updated. We have implemented that penalty schedule, and all of our violations as they settle are settled per a published penalty schedule. Third, the other issue that is here, BIC was subject to oath trials where we could only put 15 cases on 1 day a week. So it created a large backlog. 2 changes have happened, that situation created our early settlement program, which we have. And then additionally, we have since transferred from BIC trials to BIC hearings so that we can hear more cases. But a lot of the violations that BIC issues are prima facie violations of graduated importance. So we feel as though, especially since the Adams administration, that we have taken violations much more seriously, cleared out backlogs, and held all the companies to the standards that our rules provide.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are any awardees citywide facing issues with their BIC licenses? And if so, do you expect this will affect any awardees' ability to perform collections in their zone when implemented?
Currently, no.
What is BIC's process now, and what factors are considered when BIC receives notice that a carder is consolidating with another?
Well, as stated previously, they have to do a sales application and/or a subcontract. It has to be done in writing. Part of that is to notify the customers. So we adhere to all of those rules.
And my last question is, does BIC or DSNY have an eye towards keeping future CWZ procurements equitable and competitive when it receives these notices?
BIC takes its mission very seriously of equity throughout the whole industry. However, CWZ and their picking of carders is under the exclusive management of DSNY.
All right, I'm not going to just pivot to some of the questions regarding the intro that is related to BIC. Thank you for your patience. Does the administration have and maintain an updated list of all grease-generating establishments?
So I can only answer as to BIC. What BIC does specifically is there are 21 licensees who haul grease waste. We have a list of all 21 licensees, and we have a list of all of their customers. I believe that's about 16,000 customers. That is broken down between yellow grease, brown grease, and yellow and brown grease. And so we have the list of where the grease comes from, but we don't, that's where our authority starts and ends. It doesn't go to what happens inside the restaurants.
Okay. How many grease-generating establishments have active contracts with licensed carters to collect and dispose of yellow and brown grease?
Well, per our rules, our contracts can be verbal or oral or written contracts, so we don't have an idea of how many contracts exist. But again, per our customer register rules, we get a list quarterly from these 20 licensees of who their customers are. And so that tells us there's 16,000 establishments of which grease is hauled from.
And does that include verbal contracts on that list?
Yes, I mean, it's more the customers than contracts.
Okay. And my last question for real this time. What data does BIC collect about yellow and brown grease collectors? During the last 3 years, how many organizations were fined by BIC for improper grease disposals, and what percentage of these violations were resolved?
Well, we have their business data, their address. We also have that yellow grease is picked up from about 8,900 establishments. Brown grease is picked up from 3,400 establishments, and both yellow and brown grease is collected from about 3,700 establishments for a total of 1,600. BIC does not have regulatory oversight authority over the commercial establishments that generate the grease. DEP is the overseeing agency for grease inceptors at commercial establishments.
Thank you for your time today. This panel is excused.
Thank you so much.
My apologies.
We're on the subject of grease.
Sorry, if you have another few more minutes.
Can you explain to me, please, what is the difference in yellow grease and brown grease? And I mean, sounds really dumb, and I'm sorry for that, but I just need to know.
I'm not an expert in grease either, but per Google, yellow grease is clean grease that can be recycled for biofuel, and there is a secondary market for that yellow grease.
Yeah.
Brown grease has been tainted by fats, oils, and wastewater and water.
So that comes from a restaurant,
That's
what I say?
Yes, and that
Okay.
cannot be resold.
Right.
Yes, so that's the basic difference between yellow grease has a secondary market. And I think, Councilwoman, the interesting thing about garbage that people do not really realize who are not in garbage is that there is a tremendous secondary market for
Yes.
some of the items that people refer to typically as garbage, cardboard being one of the largest ones, grease is being the second one.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's very interesting, but and very niche, as we like to say.
It is, but it's very good.
Yeah, so
I mean, it makes sense. But where do you bring this enormous amount of grease that I'm sure you collect? Where does it go?
it has to go to specific transfer stations. Also, too, anecdotally, BIC has worked with the State Department of DEP and investigations, and in Nassau and Suffolk. We've had other grease investigations because, interestingly, this is very off topic, but when you are in a restaurant in New York City, it's inside the restaurant, but in Nassau and Suffolk or outside of New York City, usually the grease is stored outside,
yep.
and there is a theft ring of that grease since there is a recycled market on it. And I think Nassau, about a year or two ago, had a whole investigation in which we
Isn't this
participated.
weird? It just sounds, doesn't it sound like a little funny? I mean, I don't mean to make, because anything that can be recycled and reused, obviously, at the way that 8 million people in the city of New York generate garbage is all good. You know, I was just, it just sounded funny. I wanted to be able to explain to people exactly what we're talking about here. Now, just if you're at a service station and you're getting your oil changed, is that oil? Is that grease? And what do we do with that?
You know, I that's beyond my pay grade.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm sorry,
I
but
can
I'm sure we
appreciate
could. We
that. No,
could.
that's good.
But I mean, I do try and stay conversational on the items that we do haul. So that is, you know, yellow grease is not. I don't think it's typical of automotive grease.
No,
I
it's
think
not.
it's cooking grease.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate your sense of humor as well. Thank you.
Thank you. This panel is officially excused.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Oops, you're on my dip bag. Frank, always a pleasure.
I now open the hearing for public testimony. I remind members of the public that this is a government proceeding and that decorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant at Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant at Arms and wait to be recognized. When recognized, you will have 2 minutes to speak on today's hearing topic, commercial waste zones, or any of the legislation on our agenda today. If you have written statement or additional written testimony you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of that testimony to the Sergeant at Arms. You may also email written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov within 72 hours of this hearing. Audio and video recordings will not be accepted. I'm now going to call the first panel. And my apologies if I mispronounce your name. Lou Dubuque, Wendy Chavez, Lacey Tauber, and Dior Saint Hilaire. And may you please state your name when you first speak so I know who's speaking. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair. Hi. So my name's Lacey Tauber. I'm representing Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso, who was here earlier but unfortunately had to leave. We wrote the testimony before this morning's announcement, so I'm just going to wing it. I will say, wanted to echo a lot of the sentiments expressed by Councilmember Ressler. I think if anybody saw the BP speak at this morning's rally, his hair was in fact on fire about the timeline. Just as Councilmember Ressler said, you know, we've been working on this for about a decade, and it's really disappointing to see the rollout be so slow. The BP would really like to see it move faster so that we can deliver on the intent of the bill to provide good jobs, safe streets, and less pollution. So we've been getting some regular updates from DSNY, and just wanted to say, you know, regarding some of the enforcement that was discussed, it is concerning that out of 3 of the assigned carters in the first zone, 2 have already received $2,500 penalties for reaching an excessive number of safety violations in a short time frame. So on one hand, this indicates that DSNY is doing its job with increased enforcement, but it also speaks to the fact that the industry is still in need of a major culture shift that won't happen until all 20 zones are fully implemented. So carters are talking to our office all the time and telling us that they need to know what to expect, if their business is going to shut down, when that's going to happen if they weren't awarded a zone, or when they need to make new investments if they were. The timeline that DSNY presented today gives a little bit more clarity, but really not enough for them to do that kind of effective planning. Today's economy is unpredictable enough, and these small businesses, they deserve clarity on what their future holds. And I just wanted to really quickly comment on the two bills. The borough president supports Intro 1228, expanding the types of businesses required to source separate organics. And then on Intro 784, that was his bill in the council originally on the yellow and brown grease. So just to clarify that the goal is really to deter both illegal disposal, which creates some issues sometimes, with the fatbergs, and also theft, as was mentioned. One of the ways to address some of what we heard from BIC is to see the language be a bit more specific, to create a chain of custody tracking requirement that tracks from the source through collection and ultimately to disposal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lacey. Next.
Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Lou Dubuque, and I'm the Vice President for the National Waste and Recycling Association's Northeast chapters. Our member companies will be servicing customers in 19 of the 20 commercial waste zones across New York City when it's fully implemented. We all agree the rollout of the commercial waste zone program requires intentional planning, clear and consistent communication amongst all parties, and data-driven adaptability to address the reality of the program's real-time implications. A smooth transition hinges on awardees' ability to carry out the requirements of Local Law 199 and DSNY's rollout instructions. We staunchly believe that a communicative, proactive, and symbiotic partnership between DSNY and the awardees is the only credible path to ensuring the success of the CWZ program. To establish that partnership, we request that DSNY address the following considerations. 1, sharing the full zone implementation timeline with awardees is of paramount importance. Understandably, the rollout timing imposes extensive financial and operational implications on both awardees and non-awardees. 2, we strongly support the establishment of a commercial waste zone working group as proposed within Intro number 352 from last year, primarily sponsored by City Council member Sandy Nurse. Consistent and reciprocal feedback will only heighten the DSNY's oversight of critical challenges affecting customers and awardees, unify the distribution of consistent customer-facing information, and streamline program-related issues resolution pertaining to customer questions, data integrity, and operational quandaries. And 3, effective customer education will dramatically improve transition period efficacy. Every business across the 5 boroughs is impacted by the CWZ program. While awardees consider the transformation daily, local New York City businesses may not understand the program's implications until an awardee's sales rep attempts to solicit their businesses. We believe it is critical for DSNY to strengthen their customer education efforts and work in unison with awardees to avoid confusion during the transition period. Over 1 year has passed and only 1 zone has been implemented since awardees executed their agreement with DSNY. To avoid further financial and operational burdens associated with a lack of program-related information, we strongly urge DSNY to share a roadmap for program implementation and elevate a partnership with awardees moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Good afternoon. My name is Wendy Chavez. I'm an associate at Cole Shots PC, and I'm appearing today on behalf of our client, Fast Tech Industries Incorporated, a family-owned carding company that has proudly served Staten Island for over a decade. We've attended prior hearings on behalf of our client, and we're here again to advocate for what our client believes is a matter of basic fairness and equity. Staten Island is too often treated like a single neighborhood rather than the full borough that it is. This inequity is reflected in the creation of just one zone for the commercial waste zone legislation, which effectively is limiting services to only 3 carding companies. FastTech strongly believes that the structure is unfair and leaves Staten Island residents and businesses with very limited options. We urge DSNY and this committee's support to seriously consider establishing more than one zone for the borough to ensure adequate competition and fairness. We've already been told that due to the one zone, three karting company rule, prices are all set to increase for the businesses, surpassing the current pricing that FastTech Industry provides, as well as other karting companies that are currently active in the borough. This outcome defeats a primary purpose of the legislation, which is fair pricing. More urgently, FastTech Industries continues to call for the rebidding of the commercial waste zone contracts that have been awarded, especially since it has been several years since the initial selection, and the current list of awardees is outdated. There's no assurance that they're still meeting the necessary standards for the contracts. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much. This panel is excused. In the next panel, we have Kathleen Irwin, Janelle Scott, Justin Wood, and Laura Pine.
Hello, my name is Lauren Pine, and I am a member of Families for Safe Streets. On November 15th in 2017, I was crossing the street in the crosswalk in the Lower East Side of Manhattan with the light when I was struck and dragged by a dump truck. I was brought to the hospital and put in a medically induced coma for 4 days while they tried to save my left leg. They were unsuccessful due to infection, and the entire leg at the hip was removed, which is a rare amputation. My life changed forever that day. I was a working RN at Sloan Kettering Hospital, and suddenly I was a patient in the ICU for 3 months at New York Presbyterian in the burn ICU. Donor skin from my back was peeled off and used as a skin graft to cover my remaining leg, which is completely scarred and has extensive nerve damage, which has led to me needing to use a wheelchair. It's very difficult to use a prosthetic at this level of amputation. It's a very tight, hard plastic shell that you really have trouble breathing in, let alone lifting that 18-pound metal leg with nothing but your lower abdominal muscles. I even need crutches with my prosthesis, and I frequently fall, so the wheelchair has become a better option for me despite the difficulty of finding accessible places. All of this was and is preventable. It is a predictable result of a system that puts New Yorkers in danger every single day. Think of all the times you're standing at a crosswalk and a big truck goes by you. Too often, commercial waste vehicles like this one that hit me are traveling unnecessarily long distances over a single night, a problem the City Council addressed 5 years ago by passing Local Law 199 to create commercial waste zones. But we are still waiting on 95% of the zones to be implemented, and this inaction has led to the tragic death and serious injury of more New Yorkers. This is unacceptable. We must act now by putting New Yorkers' safety first and implementing Local Law 199 without delay. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you for your powerful testimony and using your experiences to advance, this cause. And we take your experiences very seriously. We take your testimony very seriously. We know there's a better way, and I agree that this is preventable via policy. And I want to thank you, Families for Safe Streets, as well.
Thank you to Chair Abreu for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Janelle Scott, and I'm the Climate Director at Align, and we're also a member of the Transform Don't Trash Coalition. Our coalition is working to transform New York City's commercial trash industry by reducing waste pollution, fostering clean and healthy communities for New Yorkers, as well as creating better working conditions for our sanitation workers. Our coalition has been doing this work for over 10 years now, and just over 6 years ago had advocated for the passage of Local Law 199. And as we've heard multiple times today, we only have one zone out of the 20 zones, with an announcement to have 2 additional zones this year. And so that leaves us with 17 zones that DSNY plans to roll out by 2027, which is 2 years from now. This is still too slow of a timeline, and it's still not clear the reason behind that delayed timeline, and otherwise just seems as a decision from the administration, because we've already heard that there's a lot of support from varying angles for the commercial waste zone system. Sanitation remains one of the most hazardous occupations, with workers driving long shifts of up to 12 hours a night, traveling across multiple boroughs to pick up waste on very inefficient routes. And this also releases huge amounts of emissions, which continue to affect the public health of already overburdened communities. And in our research alone, we've seen that between 2022 and 2024, there have been 103 incidents with 3 fatalities. So this should not be the case after 6 years that the law has been passed. And we think that this administration needs to and can do better. So we are not asking for all the zones to be implemented at once, but we are asking for them to be implemented in our lifetime. So thank you so much for the opportunity to testify today. And we look forward to continuing to work with the City Council as well as DSNY for a stronger and quicker rollout timeline. Thank you.
I don't know if we want to give them the deadline of a lifetime. I think we should be stricter than that. Justin?
Thanks so much, Councilmember Abreu, Chair Abreu, and to the members of the council and previous sanitation chairs who have been present today. I'm Justin Wood. I'm the Director of Policy at New York Lawyers for the Public Interest. As we've heard today, I mean, here we are in Earth Day, in Earth Week, in an unprecedented time in human history. We have a powerful federal government that's doing everything it can to reverse, undermine, and roll back the progress we've made on climate and on social equity and equality and environmental justice as we speak. And sanitation is not an isolated issue. It is something that remains firmly within New York City's control, where this municipality can control what happens to the waste generated by 8 or 9 million people and businesses. So we really appreciate your focus and the committee's focus on this. And it's frustrating to hear about this very slow pace of implementation of common sense win-win-win laws that would give us a chance to recycle and divert far more waste, including organic waste, from landfills and incinerators, bring some relief to environmental justice communities that have borne far too much of the burden of the safety and health hazards of the current system, if done right, and create good, sustainable local jobs as we deal with the economic crisis and uncertainty that's brewing at the same time. So we appreciate the council's push for a much faster and more robust implementation of this law. We strongly support Intro 1228, which would just simplify and make composting rules apply to all businesses. We also appreciate the back and forth on residential composting today, because the simplest way to do this is to have one set of rules, one set of behaviors that 8 or 9 million New Yorkers can learn. Commercial composting should actually be low-hanging fruit in the campaign to divert more organics, because there's fewer businesses generating waste, and each business typically generates more organic waste than an individual household. So this makes sense. We look forward to continuing to advocate with you.
We really appreciate all of you, your organizations, and the work you do. Thank you very much. Next up, we have Eric Goldstein and Madison Pinckney.
Madison Pinckney not here, right? All right.
Good afternoon, Chair Abreu. Eric Goldstein from the Natural Resources Defense Council. I'm going to summarize my written testimony. For decades, the system for collecting trash from businesses, restaurants, and industrial establishments has been completely broken, as you know. Hundreds of private cars, sanitation trucks racing around the city every night, high speeds, overlapping irrational routes, poorly trained, poorly treated workers, older polluting vehicles, millions of miles of diesel truck traffic every year, safety on the public streets endangered. When the council passed Local Law 199 of 2019, it was with the intent to address these problems. Major reform objectives included reducing vehicle miles traveled, curbing vehicular crashes, improving training and worker conditions for private sanitation employees, enhanced recycling and composting, and transparent processing. But today, implementation of the Waste Zone program has been going excruciatingly slow, and we do not have information on the extent to which any of these objectives that the council had when it passed the law are being achieved in the first zone. We recommend that the council amend Local Law 199 to insert into the law a date certain for the full citywide implementation of the zone program, and for directing this Department of Sanitation to monitor and track the performance of waste zone carters in achieving the labor, environmental, and public safety objectives. We hope that some of that information will be available in the annual report, but we think a mandate would be necessary so that we can determine the extent to which those goals are being achieved. Turning to the department's flip-flop and delay in enforcing the landmark organic separation law, this is an unfortunate development, but the delay was foreseeable in view of the meager education and outreach efforts undertaken by the department over the past year. The retreat on enforcement will only be helpful if the department uses the extra time to intensify its efforts and commits necessary staff and resources to educate the public, to distribute tens of thousands of kitchen counter organic bins, and to meet with supers and building managers to explain how the program works and why it's so important. Also, the department would be wise to acknowledge the critical role that community composting NGOs play in building support for and participation in the curbside program. Finally, just a word on the two bills on today's agenda. Intro 784 is an important piece of legislation to address the often overlooked problem resulting in the disposal of yellow and brown grease in the sewage system. NRDC strongly supports this legislation. Intro 1228 is another important bill that would direct the SNY to expand the categories of businesses subject to the requirements for separation and disposal of organics. NRDC is fully supportive of the objectives of this bill. We believe that it makes sense to ensure successful implementation for the council to engage in conversations with the restaurant industry to build understanding and support for the legislation from the businesses that will be subject to this law before passage of the statute. And we look forward to working with you on those details. And we thank you for your leadership. Just holding this hearing today, as you see, was successful in at least triggering the department's announcing of a goal for implementation of the full implementation of the Waste Zone program. So your hearings are having an impact, your oversight is having an impact, and we appreciate everything the council has done to move this landmark program forward.
Thank you, Eric. I think we need to have a hearing every month on commercial waste zones for more results. No, I appreciate your time and your work and your guidance on these issues. Having known you for 7 years now is truly incredible, and thank you for your wealth of knowledge and guidance. Thank you very much.
We'll keep it going. Thank you.
Let's
Mr.
go
Chairman.
Yankees. Are there any individuals who are here now who still wish to testify in person? Please sign a witness statement. You did? What's your name? All right, let's see if we can find it. If not, you may have to fill it out again. My apologies. You can make your way up, sir. You're with Teamsters, right? Yes. I remember seeing you this morning. Thank you again.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Good morning. Perfect. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I am Benicio Crespi, Secretary Treasurer of the Teamsters Local 813. I am also a former worker in the private sanitation industry, 27 years. Teamsters Local 813 is one of the largest labor organizations representing workers in the private sanitation industry. Local 813 has been a supporter of the Commercial Waste Zone initiative since the very beginning. We are proud to partner with our brothers and sisters organizations in the Transform Don't Trash Coalition. It has been our hope that the collection of sanitation from private industries could be reformed and improved, operate more safely and efficiently. With the vision and determination of political leaders like Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso, Councilperson Sandy Nurse, and Chair Sean Abreu of the Committee of the Sanitation and Solid Waste Management, and all of the New York City leaders who believe in and support this important initiative, things are finally getting done. We see with the rollout of the program an increase in worker safety, realistic routing has reduced vehicle miles traveled. Conditions are improving in the industry, but we still have work to accomplish. We will continue to push for rollout of the improvements that will occur for the workers in the sanitation industry, the residents of our city, and the benefits of environmental issues are all must be done concerns for our coalition. Teamsters Local 813 and the TDT-NY coalitions remain committed to supporting the Commercial Waste Zone program and look forward to our continued positive working relationship with the leadership of the Department of Sanitation and our esteemed politicians who remain advocates for the success of the program. We can all help to see this through. We can all help make this happen. We can all benefit from the result of what the Commercial Waste Zone program will provide to all. Let's not give up.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate the Teamsters and all of your work as well. You are excused.
Thank you.
Are there any other individuals who are here now who still wish to testify? Seeing none, I will now transition to testimonies on Zoom. First, we have David Biederman.
Hello, I hope you can hear me. My name is David Biederman. I'm the president of Biederman Consulting, a solid waste consulting firm, and I'm here to testify to provide a brief update to the committee, primarily about the safety-related aspects of Commercial Waste Zone. I currently serve 3 functions relating to CWZ. First, I'm the sole industry representative on DSNY CWZ's Safety Task Force. Second, I provide safety training to numerous awardees and BIC licensees. Third, I provide some strategic guidance to some of the licensees as they try to navigate the opaque solid waste landscape that's imposed by CWZ and help them evaluate the future of their family businesses. I'm pleased to report the CWZ Safety Task Force has started to meet regularly again. Several subcommittees have been formed to explore specific topics. There's strong collaboration between DSNY, the BIC, DOT, and myself on the task force and in these subcommittees. And I look forward to continuing to help make solid waste collection safer, both from the workers' perspective and for road users, such as pedestrians, bicyclists, drivers, and others. Now, CWZ requires all awardees to provide a certain amount of classroom training to frontline workers, such as drivers and helpers. And I've been providing that training since early last year. These efforts are already making a difference. In the late 2010s, not that long ago, there were up to 3 worker fatalities each year in New York City in our industry. In contrast, there has not been a single private sector licensee worker fatality for the past several years. This is because the vast majority of companies in the private solid waste industry take safety very seriously. And some of the rhetoric by some of the special interest groups about the lack of safety in the industry is outdated and does not reflect the current focus by the majority of licensees. And some of the data that's frequently cited by these groups is misleading, as it usually includes construction and demolition companies regulated by the BIC, but don't collect trash or recycling. And in fact, Mr. Chairman, the outdated data infuses, in fact,
your
the
time's
BMIC
expired. Thank you.
David, you want to wrap up? I'll give you 20 seconds.
Thank you, sir. Last thing, a final word about e-bikes. E-bikes are a menace to the drivers and helpers who collect waste and recycling in New York City. Doesn't matter whether you're CWZ or not, it's a threat to workers. I hear about it at every single safety training that I do. They're dangerous, they're crashing into, and in some instances, killing pedestrians, and they operate in frequent violation of the law. We should encourage PD, the BIC, and others to enforce existing traffic laws on them and not just on the Carters. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We now have Miriam Greenfield.
Starting time.
Miriam Greenfield, going once, going twice. Next up, we have Christopher Leon Johnson on Zoom.
Starting time.
Yeah, Johnson. I'm inside of Staples in Long Island. I'm not here in City Hall, but I'm here to testify in support of Senator's bill for the waste bill to separate green and yellow and brown oils that need to be needed in the city of New York, because I used to work construction security inside of the Macy's project in Brooklyn, which is Lincoln West District. And what I saw was that they never really separated the type of stuff they need to separate. They were just worried about getting stuff out the place because they were trying to get the job done quickly so they could keep on getting paid. I think that need to stop happening within these job sites, because I think it puts a lot of people in danger. The average person don't know what's in those what those oils mean and what they can do to somebody's health. So that need to stop. They need to really crack down on that more. Sandy Nurse is correct about the bill that need to be implemented. But going to the commercial waste zone situation, this need to be put in more industrial zones, not in residential zones. We need put in the big zones is for like in more industrial zones, but commercial waste zones. I understand what's going on with the commercial waste. And my get well better to the lady that lost her leg, who's a member of Family Safe Streets. I wish that on nobody. At the same time, what needs to start happening more is they need to start background checking more of these drivers and start drug testing these drivers more often. Maybe this stuff will stop. And I'm calling on the city council to put bills in the city council, starting with you, Mr. Abreu, and Nurse, to put in the transportation committee to make it where that if anybody want to drive a commercial waste truck, need to go through a background check and go through a random drug test, implemented by the city of New York. Not by the job itself, but the city of New York needs to start implementing random drug tests to all these commercial drug drivers, because maybe if this started happening, these guys will start getting fired more, and we wouldn't have more of the ladies that like this.
Time's expired. Thank you.
Who got hit. So thank you, Mr. Bray. I gotta go. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day.
Thank you so much, Mr. Johnson. All right. Everyone on our list has testified. I'm delighted to announce that this hearing is hereby adjourned.